Hi guys, and welcome to America History Tales. Tonight we step into a snowy evening in 1947 where the streetlights glow through thick flakes. The gutters wear little white caps, and a brand new American dream home waits with warm windows and a roofline softened by winter. You are standing outside in the storm, coat collar turned up, shoes gathering slush, while the wind comes along the block like it has rent to collect. And let's be honest, without central heat, dry socks, and a very determined family furnace, you probably won't survive this with your dignity intact. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell us where you are watching from, and what your local time is, especially if it is late enough that the sensible people in your house have already gone to bed. Now, dim the lights and come closer to the front steps. You trudge up the narrow walk, the kind poured in pale concrete not long ago, still new enough that the edges seem proud of themselves. Snow gathers in the seams. The yard on either side is small, open, and hopeful, with young shrubs tucked under white mounds like sleeping animals. This is not a grand mansion. It is not trying to impress a baron, a railroad magnate, or some mustached man who owns half of Pennsylvania. It is a post-war family house, modest but confident, built for people who have come through hard years and now want wallpaper. Steady wages, a refrigerator that hums, and a place where children can drop wet mittens without anyone mentioning ration books too loudly. The storm presses at your back as you reach the porch. The steps are slick beneath your soles. Somewhere behind you, a car creeps along the street, tires hissing through slush, headlights weak and yellow in the falling snow. It might be a 1946 Chevrolet or a Ford with rounded fenders, the sort of car that looks as if it has been inflated gently with a bicycle pump. In 1947, the American automobile industry is still catching its breath after wartime production, when factories that once made family cars spent years producing tanks, aircraft parts, and military trucks. New cars are wanted badly, sometimes waited for impatiently, and a driveway with a fresh sedan is almost a small domestic trophy, a very cold trophy, currently gathering snow on its hood. You stamp your feet on the mat. It is made of stiff bristles and does not care about your feelings. The front door is painted a deep practical colour, perhaps green or maroon, with a brass knob that bites cold into your palm. A little window in the upper panel catches the porch light and shines back at you. The house seems to breathe warmth through every crack. You can smell it before you enter. That indoor winter smell of dust warmed by the furnace. Wool drying somewhere, floor wax, supper lingering in the kitchen, and faint cigarette smoke caught in curtains. Not glamorous, perhaps, but deeply human. The past rarely smells like museum glass. It smells like damp socks and onions. You turn the knob, and the door opens inward with a soft wooden complaint. Warm air folds around you at once. Your cheeks sting as they thaw. Your ears prickle. The storm noise drops behind you. Not disappearing, but becoming muffled, softened, pressed outside by plaster walls and closed windows. You step into a small entry space, maybe not grand enough to be called a foyer by anyone except a real estate advertisement. A braided rug waits on the floor. A narrow table holds a dish for keys, a letter opener, and perhaps a vase with artificial flowers that have survived more handling than nature ever intended. You are inside the American dream as it looked to many families just after World War II. Not everyone had access to it. Of course, that matters. The dream was advertised as universal, but the doors did not open equally. Mortgage lending, racial restrictions, neighborhood covenants, and uneven wages shaped who could buy such homes and where. Historians still argue whether the post-war dream home represented genuine broad prosperity or a carefully managed ideal that hid many exclusions beneath its cheerful siding. Both can be true at once, which is irritating, because history enjoys refusing tidy answers. Still, here in the hallway, The feeling is unmistakable. Safety, shelter, arrival. The war has been over for less than 2 years. Many families are still rearranging themselves around returning fathers, working mothers, babies born in quick succession, and memories no one knows quite how to discuss at supper. The house is a container for all of that. It promises normal life with such confidence that you almost believe normal life is simple. You close the door and hear the latch click. Snow taps against the small panes like grains of rice thrown by a very dramatic sky. To your left may be the living room, glowing amber through an arched opening. Ahead, the hallway narrows toward the kitchen, where brighter light spills across linoleum. A staircase rises nearby, its banister polished by hands. On the wall hangs a framed print, perhaps a quiet landscape, perhaps a ship, perhaps something bought because it matched the drapes beneath it. A telephone table waits with a black rotary phone, heavy as a brick and nearly as patient. The phone's cord coils neatly. It does not fit in anyone's pocket. Imagine the horror, having to stand in one place to complain to your cousin. Beside the door, a coat closet exhales the dense smell of winter clothing. You hang your coat among wool overcoats, scarves, and a man's hat with a brim darkened by melted snow. The closet may contain mothballs, because mid-century homes loved mothballs with the enthusiasm modern people reserve for scented candles. Here is your quirky little domestic tidbit for the night. Some households tucked cakes of camphor or naphthalene among stored woolens, not only to repel moths, but almost as a sign of careful housekeeping, even though the smell could make a closet seem less like storage and more like a chemistry lesson wearing a cardigan. You remove your gloves, your fingers feel clumsy. The floor underfoot is firm, perhaps hardwood in the front rooms, perhaps covered by a patterned rug chosen for durability rather than subtlety. The house is not large, but every inch has a purpose. Post-war builders often favoured efficient plans, smaller rooms, built-in storage, and easy movement from kitchen to dining area to living room. This was an architecture of convenience, a word that carried real magic in the 1940s. Convenience meant time saved. Time saved meant rest, at least in theory. In practice, it often meant the same work done to a higher standard, especially for women. But we will let the house keep its secrets for a little longer. For now, you simply stand there and listen. The storm scratches at the door. The furnace murmurs somewhere below. A clock ticks with the calm authority of an object that has never been asked to multitask. From the kitchen comes the faint clink of a spoon against a saucepan. Someone laughs quietly in the next room, not loudly. This is evening laughter, already softened by curtains and weather. You step farther in, and the house receives you completely. The entryway is a threshold between public cold and private warmth, between the uncertain world outside and the carefully arranged comfort within. In 1947, that boundary feels especially powerful. Outside are icy roads, shortages still working themselves out, newspapers full of labours, strikes, international tensions, and the early chill of what people will soon call the Cold War. Inside are slippers, soup, a radio, a table lamp, and the stubborn belief that a family can close the door and be safe for the night. Of course, houses are never truly separate from history. The weather gets in, the economy gets in, old grief gets in, new hopes get in and leave fingerprints on the banister. But as you stand in the little hall, warming your hands and listening to snow brush the windows, you understand why this home matters. It is not just wood and plaster, it is a wish-built room by room. You take one more slow breath. Warm dust, wool, supper, waxed floor. The storm stays outside for now, grumbling like it has been denied a chair at the table. You move toward the glow, and behind you the front door settles into its frame, holding back the night. You move farther from the entryway, and the warmth changes character. At the front door, It was a soft rescue, a blanket thrown around your shoulders. Now it becomes something more complicated. A system of pipes, vents, grates, drafts, habits, and small negotiations. A winter house in 1947 does not simply become warm by wishing. It must be coaxed, fed, adjusted, listened. Comfort is not yet invisible. It has sounds, it has smells, it has moods. Your stocking feet find a warmer patch near the hall, then a cooler strip along the wall. The house is full of little weather borders, invisible lines where indoor climate changes beneath your toes. Near the living room, heat rises from a floor register with a faint metallic breath. If the home has forced air, the furnace below sends warmth through ducts, and the register gives off that toasted dust smell that seems to belong to every winter childhood in every decade. If the house has hot water radiators, the warmth gathers more slowly, deep and steady, with the occasional tick, ping, and sigh from metal expanding in the cold. Either way, the house is not silent, it is murmuring to itself. You pause beside the register and let the rising air touch your ankles. It is not the crisp, perfectly managed warmth of a modern thermostat, set by a glowing rectangle that quietly judges everyone. This is more hands-on. Someone has likely checked the furnace, someone has worried about coal, oil, or gas. Someone has learned which room gets too warm first and which corner never quite forgives January. In many American homes of the late 1940s, heating was shifting toward greater convenience, with oil and gas systems becoming more common in some regions. Although coal furnaces still remained familiar in many households, a mainstream fact, but also a tactile one. Post-war domestic comfort depended on fuel networks, delivery schedules, basement labour, and the practical knowledge of whoever knew how to make the house behave. The snow light presses against the windows. It is blue at the edges, silver where it catches on the sill, and nearly white where flakes swirl past the glass. The storm does not make the room darker exactly. It changes the light into something hushed. Lamps glow more warmly because the outside is so cold. Shadows become softer. The ceiling seems lower, not unpleasantly, but as if the house has tucked its chin down against the weather. You pass a window and feel the draft immediately. There it is, a thin cold finger slipping around the frame. The curtains stir just a little. You can almost hear some practical adults saying, not for the first time, that the storm window should have been checked before the first big snow. In 1947, many houses used storm windows and storm doors to add a second barrier against winter, especially in colder parts of the country. Insulation standards are not what later generations will expect, and energy is not yet discussed in quite the same anxious vocabulary. Heat loss is understood through sensation cold feet, frosted panes, a bedroom that feels fine at 8 and chilly by midnight. You touch the glass. It is bitterly cold. Moisture has gathered along the lower edge, making a cloudy border. In some homes, frost feathers the corners from the inside, delicate and inconvenient. Nature's lacework, which is charming only if you're not responsible for wiping up the water later. The storm outside scratches softly at the house, and the house answers with creaks in the studs and little ticks in the pipes. A radiator, if this home has one in the front room, crouches beneath the window like a loyal metal animal. Its paint is thick from years of fresh coats, perhaps cream or dull silver. You can smell hot metal if you lean close. You might even see a small pan of water set on or near it to add moisture to the air. Because winter heat dries the throat and makes noses feel like folded paper. Here is the quirky tidbit for this section. Some families place decorative humidifier jars, little ceramic containers shaped like birds, cottages or flowers, on radiators so evaporating water could soften the air. The idea was practical, but the result could be oddly theatrical, as if a tiny pottery swan had been assigned responsibility for everyone's sinuses. You walk slowly through the hallway, and each room offers a different climate. The living room is warmest where people gather. The dining area holds a gentler warmth, touched by the kitchen's heat. The upstairs, not yet visited, is likely cooler, especially near outer walls. This unevenness shapes behaviour. People choose chairs near lamps and heat. Children sprawl on rugs but not too close to the draught. Adults close doors to conserve warmth, open them again when the air grows stuffy, and develop the mysterious ability to sense from one room away that somebody has left the door open. Every family has a guardian of heat. They may not wear a badge, but they are powerful. A faint rumble rises through the floorboards. The furnace below has started again. It is not a dramatic roar, more like a sleepy beast rolling over in the basement. The sound travels up through ducts or along pipes, making the house feel inhabited from beneath. That lower machinery matters. Without it, the lovely wallpaper and polished furniture are just cold objects arranged in the dark. With it, the whole structure becomes almost bodily, circulating warmth, holding breath, responding to the storm. Historians still debate how much post-war Americans truly experienced comfort as a private achievement, rather than as the product of large public systems such as fuel delivery, utility expansion, federal housing policy, and industrial planning. It is a fair question. Even here in your slippers, a family might feel proud of its warm living room, but that warmth is connected to mines, refineries, railroads, pipes, wages, mortgages, and government-backed growth. The cozy room is never just cozy, it is a national project with curtains. Still, you do not need to carry all that too heavily tonight. The house is warm, the storm is outside. That is enough for a tired body. You notice how heat shapes sound. The curtains absorb the room. Rugs soften footsteps. Snow outside quiets the street, making every indoor noise seem more intimate. A spoon in the kitchen sounds clear. The radio, not yet the focus of the evening, hums faintly somewhere, perhaps warming its tubes before voices fully bloom. The walls hold a low pulse of family life, even silence has texture. You pass another register and kneel for a moment, letting the warm air rise toward your hands. The metal grill is dusty between its slats. If you are a child, you might hover here until someone tells you not to block the heat. You might whisper secrets into the vent, imagining they travel through the walls and come out in another room, which, frankly, is not the worst communication system humanity has invented. At least the vent does not require a password. The snow thickens beyond the glass. It blurs the neighbouring houses into soft shapes. Porch lights become halos. The street disappears by degrees. Inside, the dream home contracts into a circle of warmth. The outside world remains present only as pressure, whiteness, and sound. You rise and continue toward the brighter rooms, carrying with you the simple knowledge that in this house, winter is not defeated, it is managed. It waits at the seams, at the windows, under the door, along the cold nail heads and shadowed corners. But for now, the furnace breathes again, the registers sigh, the radiators tick softly if radiators there are, and the family evening holds its shape against the snow. You follow the warmer current of air toward the kitchen, where the house becomes brighter, busier, and more certain of itself. The entry had the hush of arrival, the hallway the soft breathing of heat. But the kitchen has command. It glows with overhead light and reflected enamel, with the shine of handles, the pale squares of linoleum, and the quiet authority of a room that expects to be used. If the living room is where the family performs comfort, the kitchen is where comfort is assembled, measured, stirred, wiped down, and occasionally rescued from the edge of burning. The first thing you notice is the smell. Supper is not yet a full plate before you, but it is already everywhere. There is onion softening in fat, perhaps a little celery, maybe potatoes warming under a lid, and the faint metallic sweetness of canned vegetables. Coffee may be waiting on the stove, strong and a little bitter. Something baked earlier still lingers in the corners, maybe biscuits. Maybe a plain cake, maybe nothing more glamorous than toast, but in a snowstorm, even toast can behave like a national treasure. The kitchen is not huge. Many post-war kitchens are designed for efficiency, not lingering. Counters run in practical lines. Cabinets are painted a cheerful colour, perhaps white, butter yellow, mint green, or soft blue. The sink is deep, with chrome taps that flash under the light. A dish towel hangs from a handle, already damp from several rounds of use. The refrigerator hums in the corner. Stout and rounded, with a latch handle that feels satisfyingly mechanical. In 1947, home refrigerators are increasingly common in American households, a major shift from the older reliance on ice boxes and regular ice delivery. That hum is not just background noise, it is modernity purring in enamel. You step closer to it and feel the coolness around its door. Inside might be milk in glass bottles, butter wrapped in paper, leftovers in covered dishes, eggs in a little tray, and perhaps a gelatin mould waiting with the unearned confidence of mid-century cuisine. The refrigerator promises safety, freshness, convenience, and, let us be brave enough to say it, the possibility of suspiciously firm salads. America after the war is falling in love with appliances, not only because they save labour, but because they symbolise a future that can be purchased on instalment. Nearby, the stove carries the evening's real drama. It may be gas, with blue flames trembling under iron grates, or electric, with coils darkening and glowing in slow obedience. A pot lid rattles softly. Steam gathers, then slips into the air. The windows above the sink are fogged from the inside, and someone has drawn a quick finger line through the moisture to check whether the snow is still coming down. It is. Of course it is. The storm is committed now, the way some guests are committed to staying long after dessert. A woman may be at the stove, or perhaps an older daughter helps, or an aunt has stepped in, depending on the family. The exact arrangement changes from house to house. But the expectation is familiar. Domestic labour in 1947 is heavily gendered, even as wartime work has recently complicated what people think women can and should do. Many women who worked in factories, offices, or wartime services have been urged back toward home, praised for sacrifice and then praised again for cheerful housekeeping, which is a neat little trick society likes to pull. The kitchen is a place of pride, yes, but also pressure. Still, you do not enter with a lecture tucked under your arm. You enter with cold hands and an appetite. The room welcomes both. You stand near the counter and watch the choreography. A drawer opens, a spoon clinks, the oven door creaks down, releasing a puff of heat that smells like browned edges and patience. A bowl is set aside with a saucer over it. The radio voice from the living room is still distant, half music, half murmur. The kitchen answers with its own percussion knife on board. Tap running, cabinet latch, chair leg scraping, pot lid ticking against steam. Here is the quirky tidbit tucked into the enamel shine some 1940s kitchens included built-in flour bins, bread drawers, or fold-out ironing boards hidden behind narrow cabinet doors, because designers dreamed of banishing clutter while also somehow assigning the kitchen every task known to civilization. You might open what looks like a slim cupboard and discover an ironing board waiting upright like a secret plank. Convenient, yes, also a reminder that in the dream home, work has not disappeared, it has simply been given clever hinges. On the counter, packaged foods sit alongside older habits. A can of peas, a tin of shortening, a paper sack of flour, maybe a box of gelatin, a jar of instant coffee, or a bottle of ketchup with a stubborn neck. Wartime rationing in the United States ended after the war, with sugar rationing lasting until 1947, which means this very year carries a lingering memory of limits. People remember saving grease, stretching meat, planning around points, and feeling oddly triumphant over small luxuries. A cake on the counter in 1947 can mean more than dessert. It can mean sweetness has returned. Historians continue to quarrel over whether post-war convenience foods truly liberated homemakers or simply raised expectations for variety, presentation, and constant domestic performance. The advertisements are very confident. They show smiling women producing perfect meals with one hand while wearing dresses that never meet gravy. Reality, as usual, has more dishwater in it. More dishwater. You glance at the table tucked into the kitchen or just beyond it. It is set with plates, maybe heavy ceramic ones with a modest pattern around the edge. Forks line up beside folded napkins. A child's cup waits near one place. Salt and pepper stand in the middle, close to a small dish of pickles or relish. The family does not have to be wealthy to make supper feel orderly. Order itself is part of the comfort. After depression years and war years, a set table can look like proof that the centre is holding. A pantry door opens, and you catch a deeper smell. Paper, spices, dry cereal, canned tomatoes, perhaps apples stored in a crate. The shelves are a quiet archive of the household's worries and preferences. There are things bought because they were on sale, things saved for company, things no one likes but everyone keeps because throwing food away feels immoral. That little jar in the back may have moved with the family twice. No one trusts it, no one discards it. It has become part of the household government. You lean against the counter and feel the warmth of the room settle into your clothes. Outside, snow taps the kitchen window more urgently. Inside, light reflects from the sink and the stove. The refrigerator hums. The floor gives slightly beneath your step. This room is practical, but it is also emotional. It gathers the family before they fully gather themselves. It receives the wet mittens, the school lunch pails, the market bags, the whispered worries about money, the jokes, the scoldings, the second cups of coffee, the hand resting for just one tired moment on the edge of the sink. The kitchen is the command centre because life keeps reporting here. Hunger reports here, weather reports here. Children report here whether they mean to or not. The storm may own the street, but supper is being organised under this roof, and that gives the house a soft, stubborn confidence. A lid lifts, steam rises and clouds the cook's face for a breath. Someone says it is nearly ready. The light hums overhead. You breathe in onion, coffee, warm metal, and the faint sweetness of a year still learning how to be peaceful, as plates begin to move toward the table. The plates reach the table one by one, warm from the kitchen, slightly heavy in your hands. You settle into a chair as the storm leans against the windows, and the whole room seems to gather inward around supper. The glass panes tremble now and then when the wind finds the side of the house. Snowflakes stick to the outside, melt, vanish, and are replaced by more. Beyond the dark window, the yard has lost its edges. The young shrubs have become white humps. The walk you crossed only minutes ago is already blurring, as if the house is gently erasing the evidence of your arrival. You sit where you are told, because in a 1947 household, chairs often have invisible owners. Father's place may be at the end or near the wall. Mother's may be closest to the kitchen, not because fate loves efficiency, but because someone will need another spoon. More bread, the forgotten butter, and perhaps a towel for the child who has knocked over water. Children know their places too. Even guests learn quickly. A family table is a map of authority, affection, habit, and who is most likely to be asked to pass the salt. Supper is plain, but not poor. A pot roast might be sliced thin to stretch farther, or there may be meatloaf with a glossy ketchup top, potatoes, carrots, peas from a can, bread, butter, and something sweet waiting quietly for later. Maybe it is chicken and dumplings, maybe baked beans and brown bread. The exact meal depends on region, budget, and the shopping available that week, but it carries the same promise the day has made it to evening. And everyone under this roof is being fed. You lift your fork. Steam rises from the potatoes. The canned peas shine a green too confident for nature, but they taste of yacht, metal, and convenience. The bread is soft in the middle and dry along the cut edge. Butter leaves a pale smear. If there is gravy, it pools comfortingly, smoothing over whatever the meat lacks in tenderness. The room smells of onions, cooked fat, damp wool from mittens left too near the heat, and the faint sweetness of dessert. Your shoulders loosen. Outside, winter may be writing its long complaint against the siding. Inside, the table answers with chewing, clinking, and small talk. In the United States during the late 1940s, family meals were still commonly treated as a central daily ritual, especially in the expanding middle class, where the dining table became a stage for manners, parental authority, nutrition, and the reassuring performance of normal life. Supper was never just food. It was practice in belonging. Sit up, don't reach, say please. Finish what is on your plate. Do not make that face at the peas, even though the peas started it. The conversation drifts in modest circles. Someone mentions the storm getting worse. Someone wonders whether school will be closed tomorrow. And the children try not to look too hopeful, which of course makes them look wildly hopeful. There is a remark about the neighbour's car not starting. A bill came in the mail. The grocer was low on oranges. A cousin has written from Ohio. These are not grand historical pronouncements, but they are the texture of a life. History often enters the house wearing ordinary shoes. You notice how adults speak around certain subjects. The war is close enough to touch, but not always named. A father may grow quiet at unexpected moments. A mother may keep conversation moving when silence becomes too heavy. Veterans return to American homes with different burdens, some visible, many not. The language of trauma is not yet casual at the supper table. People talk about nerves, rest, getting back to normal. Normal is spoken of like a place you can reach if you keep your shoes polished, your job steady, your children polite, and your roof from leaking. Researchers continue to disagree about how much the post-war family meal reflected genuine togetherness and how much it served as a carefully maintained ideal promoted by advertisers, magazines, schools, and advice writers. You can feel both possibilities here. There is warmth. Yes, there is also performance. Everyone knows the expected script, even if no one has been handed pages. The storm outside may be wild, but inside, the family arranges itself into order. A child asks for more bread. A knife scrapes butter across a slice. Someone is reminded not to talk with a full mouth. The younger one swings a foot beneath the chair and accidentally kicks the table leg. A glass trembles. A look is given, not a loud scolding, just the kind of look that has been perfected over generations and requires no electricity. The child becomes suddenly fascinated by potatoes. Dinnerware matters more than you might expect. Plates are sturdy, not delicate. The serving dishes may be mismatched, some older than the house itself, carried from a previous apartment or inherited from relatives in many families. The post-war home contains both new purchases and objects from harder years. A new refrigerator hums in the kitchen, while grandmother's chipped bowl holds carrots on the table. Progress and memory sit side by side, passing the gravy. Here is a small oddity to tuck beside your napkin in the 1940s. Some home economists and advertisers promoted colourful meal planning with almost scientific cheer, urging homemakers to balance nutrition, appetite, appearance, and even the emotional effect of colour on the plate. A meal could be criticised for being too beige, as if mashed potatoes, bread, and pale meat had formed a tiny conspiracy against morale. To be fair, under a winter sky, a spoonful of red cranberry sauce does seem to have morale powers. You look toward the window again. It reflects the table back at itself. Faces float over the darkness, layered with the storm outside. The family appears doubled one set eating under the lamp, another ghostly set hovering in the glass. Snow streaks through those reflected faces. The effect is peaceful, but also strange. The house feels like a lantern set in deep weather. The meal continues slowly. Nobody is rushing, though the cook may already be calculating dishes, leftovers, lunches, and tomorrow's breakfast. The children scrape plates clean because waste still carries a moral weight from depression and wartime years. The adults speak of food prices without making it sound like worry, which is an adult skill of questionable honesty but impressive technique. Coffee may be poured after the plates are mostly cleared. Its smell deepens the room. The cup warms the hand. Sugar, available again after years of rationing, feels ordinary and not ordinary at all. You taste dessert, perhaps applesauce cake, rice pudding, or canned peaches served with a little cream. Nothing elaborate, but sweet enough to soften the meal's edges. The spoon touches the bowl with a quiet click. Outside, the wind drags snow along the window screen. Inside, the table grows drowsier. The bright kitchen command has done its work, and now supper becomes memory almost as soon as it happens. Plates stack, chairs shift. Someone wipes a ring from the table. Someone folds a napkin that will be used again, because wastefulness is still vaguely sinful. The children are excused or nearly excused. The adults remain seated for one more minute, holding their cups, not yet ready to rise into the next round of tasks. You sit with them in the lamplight and feel the meaning of this simple meal settle around you. A storm outside, warm food inside, a family practicing peace in small gestures. The window rattles again and no one flinches. The house holds, the table holds, for now. That is enough. You rise with the others as supper loosens its hold on the table. Chairs scrape back, plates are gathered, and the bright kitchen begins its quieter second life, the one made of dishwater, stacked cups, and the soft complaint of a towel pulled from its hook. Yet you are drawn toward the living room, where lamplight spills across the doorway in a warmer, lower glow. The storm is still there at the windows. Of course, it has no manners. But in this room, winter is pressed into the background, reduced to a whisper behind curtains and glass. You step onto the rug, and the floor changes beneath your feet. It is softer here, more forgiving. The living room is arranged for being seen and for being comfortable. Two goals that do not always agree, but tonight they are doing their best. A sofa sits against one wall, possibly covered in textured fabric with a floral or geometric pattern. Two armchairs face inward, making a small circle around a coffee table. A floor lamp stands nearby with a pleated shade that turns the light honey-coloured. On an end table, a smaller lamp glows beside a stack of magazines, a coaster, and maybe an ashtray heavy enough to anchor a boat. The room smells different from the kitchen. Less onion now, more upholstery, warm dust, floor wax, and tobacco. A faint trace of perfume may cling to the air, powdery and plight. If someone has recently opened the front door, there is still a ghost of cold air hiding near the floor, but it is fading. The living room is winning. You notice the furniture has a certain careful newness. Not everything is new, but enough of it is. The post-war years bring a huge appetite for household goods after the shortages and production limits of the war. Factories that had made military equipment returned to consumer products, and families who delayed purchases during the conflict begin buying radios, sofas, curtains, stoves, and rugs with renewed energy. This room carries that mood. It is not extravagant. It is assembled optimism. A chair bought on credit can still hold a great deal of hope. A magazine lies open on the table, its glossy pages reflecting the lamp. Ladies' Home Journal, Life, Better Homes and Gardens, the Saturday Evening Post, perhaps a Sears catalogue nearby with corners bent. These publications are not just reading material, they are manuals of aspiration. They teach colour schemes, recipes, Manners, childcare, marriage advice, fashion, and the exact number of throw pillows required before a room becomes civilized. Which, judging by some advertisements, is always one more than you own. You sit in an armchair and feel the cushion sigh beneath you. The fabric is slightly scratchy through your clothes. The chair is positioned to face both the radio and the rest of the family. That matters. A living room in 1947 is a social machine. It guides where people sit, what they look at, who speaks, who listens, and how long the evening lasts before bedtime quietly begins. The television set has not yet conquered most American homes. Television exists, certainly, and some households in large cities are beginning to own sets, but in 1947 it is still rare compared with radio. So the living room is not yet organised around a glowing screen demanding everyone's gaze. It is arranged around conversation, reading, needlework, games, and the warm presence of the radio cabinet. The radio itself may stand like a piece of furniture, polished wood, rounded edges, dial glowing softly. It is not a little plastic thing shoved on a shelf. It has dignity. It has knobs. It has the attitude of an uncle who knows things. When it is on, the room listens. When it is off, it still seems to be thinking. Someone lowers themselves onto the sofa with a newspaper. The pages unfold with a dry rustle. A headline may mention Washington, labour unrest, housing shortages, Europe's recovery, or the uneasy relationship with the Soviet Union. But after supper, nobody reads every word. The newspaper becomes part information, part shield, part blanket for the mind. A pipe or cigarette is lit. Smoke curls upward through the lamplight, blue and slow, softening the corners of the room. Today, you may want to open a window just thinking about it. In 1947, many people simply called it atmosphere. The children enter with a different energy, still carrying supper in their cheeks and snow day fantasies in their minds. One child kneels on the rug with a toy car, pushing it along the patiners as if driving through a city designed by carpet manufacturers. Another may bring a book or a puzzle. There are paper dolls, marbles, colouring books, blocks, maybe a small wind-up toy that clicks bravely across the floor until it meets the table leg and loses its purpose. A deck of cards waits in a drawer. Board games may come out if the evening stretches long enough. Although nothing tests family peace like a child who invents new rules halfway through. One unusual little detail from the period rests in the world of decor. Some post-war living rooms display plastic slipcovers or protective covers over prized furniture, especially as newer materials entered domestic life. They promised cleanliness and preservation, but they could make sitting down feel like being wrapped for shipment. Not every home used them, but where they appeared, they announced a special household philosophy: this sofa is for family life. Yes, but please do not actually live on it too aggressively. The lamplight makes everything gentler. The walls may carry framed photographs, a wedding portrait, a soldier's picture, a child's school photo, perhaps a religious image or a landscape print. On a shelf sits a small vase, a clock, maybe a souvenir brought home by someone in uniform. Little objects turn the room into a family archive. Each has a story, although some stories are told often and others sit quietly, waiting. It's tempting to see the living room as pure comfort, but some historians have suggested that post-war interiors were also places where families performed stability after years of upheaval. The question remains open among social historians: did these rooms soothe private anxiety? Or did they quietly train people to display success in acceptable, marketable ways? Tonight, in this lamplight, the answer seems to flicker. The sofa is both a sofa and a statement. The curtains are both curtains and proof. The rug is a rug, yes, but also a small declaration that mud, fear, and uncertainty should stay outside where they belong. You lean back and listen. In the kitchen, water runs. A dish is placed in a rack, a drawer closes. In the living room, The paper rustles. A child whispers to a toy. The lamp hums faintly. Snow brushes the window in soft bursts. The room's shadows are not empty. They are full of family motion, half seen and half heard. A woman may enter carrying mending, knitting, or nothing at all except her own tired body, though even sitting can look like work if she's watching everyone at once. She takes a chair where the light is good. Her hands move almost without thought. Socks, buttons, hems, small repairs. The dream home shines in magazines, but in real life it is always fraying somewhere. Someone must keep catching the threads. The magazine on the table promises a brighter tomorrow, a better recipe, a smarter storage idea, a new shade of lipstick, a cheerful room makeover. The newspaper warns that the world remains difficult. The radio waits to speak. The children pull the family into the present, and the storm outside, muffled by curtains, seems to approve of the room's small circle of light, or at least to accept that it cannot come in yet. You settle deeper into the chair. The cushion grows warmer. The living room gathers you the way the table did, but more slowly, less directly. Supper filled the body. This room begins to fill the evening. Around you, furniture, magazines, lamps, and quiet habits arrange a social world where each person has a place. Each object has a meaning, and the snow beyond the windows makes the glow seem even softer. The radio is turned up by the gentlest twist of a knob, and the living room changes as if another person has entered. At first there is only a low electric warmth, a hum gathering itself behind the wooden cabinet. Then comes a crackle, a soft rush, a drift of distant sound sliding through static. The dial glows amber in its little window. A hand adjusts it carefully, not too fast, because the voices live between bands of noise, and if you hurry, you lose them. You sit back as the room listens. That is the remarkable thing. No one has demanded silence. Not exactly, but the household has angled itself toward the cabinet. The children pause in their play. The newspaper lowers slightly. Someone in the kitchen keeps washing dishes. Yet even the clink of crockery seems to fall into rhythm with the broadcast. The storm presses against the windows, and the radio answers with a voice from somewhere beyond the snow, beyond the street, beyond the whole white neighborhood. In 1947, radio is still the dominant household mass medium in the United States. Television is growing, especially around cities such as New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. But most families still rely on radio for news, comedy, drama, music, sports, weather, and advertising. The radio cabinet is not simply entertainment, it is a connection to the nation. It brings the outside world into the living room in measured doses, wrapped in theme music and sponsor messages, which is either comforting or alarming, depending on how much you trust a cheerful announcer selling soap. The voice clears into focus. It might be a news bulletin first, solemn but polished. Washington is mentioned. Europe is mentioned. Prices are mentioned. Strikes may be mentioned. A faraway place becomes suddenly present, then disappears again under a swell of music. The adults listen with faces that reveal little. Post-war Americans are learning to live with peace that does not feel entirely peaceful. The fighting is over. But worry has not been demobilized. It has merely changed uniforms. Outside, the wind claws at the house with a dry, papery sound. The curtains move once, just a little, from a draught near the frame. The radio hisses at the same moment, and for one sleepy second. The storm and the static seem to be speaking the same language. Snow on the roof, snow in the wires, voices crossing the night. Then the program shifts. A sponsor's jingle rises, bright as a spoon tapping a glass. You hear the confident cheer of advertising. The promise that a certain soap will keep linens fresher. A certain cereal will build strong children. A certain coffee will make mornings more civilized. The announcer speaks as if every household problem can be solved with a better purchase and a happier tone. It's almost impressive. The nation has survived depression and war, but apparently the true enemy is dull laundry. Commercial radio in this period is built around sponsorship. Brands do not merely interrupt programs, they often shape them, name them, and attach themselves to the emotional life of the family. Soap companies helped fund daytime dramas, which is why people still call them soap operas. There is your small oddity for the evening, tucked between static and snow. An entire phrase in modern language owes its staying power to detergent and daytime storytelling. Not exactly the glory of Athens, but history has strange priorities. A comedy program follows, perhaps with a live audience laughing in waves. The jokes are broad, quick, and domestic. Husbands misunderstand, wives outsmart them, neighbours intrude, money disappears, dinner burns. The audience laughs because the little failures are familiar, and because a laugh track made of real people can make a room feel less alone. The children laugh too, sometimes late, because they know laughter is expected and are not about to miss a chance. You feel the radio's magic in the way it builds pictures without showing any. A door opens in the drama, and you see it. Hooves clatter in a western, and a whole dusty street appears inside your head, which is generous work for a wooden box in a snowstorm. A detective's footsteps echo down an alley. A singer leans into the microphone, and the room softens. The imagination supplies sets, costumes, weather, faces. No screen corrects you. No image insists. You make the world yourself. And perhaps that is why the room grows so still. Media historians have long questioned whether radio in the post-war home strengthened family togetherness or quietly reorganized attention around commercial culture and national habits of listening. You can feel the puzzle without naming it too loudly. Everyone is together, yes. But they are together around a voice owned by sponsors, networks, and distant studios. The family circle has widened, and something has stepped into the centre. A child creeps closer to the cabinet, drawn by the dial. The glowing numbers look mysterious, like coordinates for invisible cities. Someone warns them not to touch. The child withdraws a finger with tragic dignity. You sympathise. The radio looks touchable in a way modern devices rarely do. It has knobs with resistance, a fabric speaker grill, polished wood that reflects the lamp. It seems less like a machine than a cabinet where tiny people have been politely imprisoned and trained to sing. The storm outside deepens. The wind has found a new direction and now sends snow against the side window in soft bursts. The sound is like handfuls of sand tossed at glass, except colder, kinder, more determined every so often. The house creaks, the radio crackles. A program fades, then returns. Weather can interfere, distance can interfere, electricity, wires, atmospheric conditions. All these hidden systems decide whether the family hears a punchline clearly or only half a sentence and a burst of static. You notice how the adults use radio time. One listens directly, face tilted toward the cabinet. Another listens while reading. Someone else listens while mending. Hands moving in and out of the lamplight. Radio allows multitasking before anyone has given multitasking such a tiresome name. It fills the room without requiring every eye. It de company for work, decoration for silence, and a guard against thoughts that might grow too loud after dark. A weather report comes on, and the room pays sharper attention. Snow continuing overnight, roads difficult, temperatures dropping. The children exchange a glance that could power a small town, and school closure is not promised. But Hope enters the living room wearing pajamas. An adult says they will see in the morning, which is the traditional phrase adults use when they wish to extinguish joy without appearing cruel. News returns briefly. The announcer's tone is steady, perhaps too steady. In 1947, the Truman Doctrine has been announced earlier in the year, and the Marshall Plan has been proposed to help rebuild Europe. Those developments belong to diplomats and newspapers, but they also drift into rooms like this one, where a father may pause over a headline and a mother may wonder what another conflict would mean for sons still small enough to sit on the rug. World affairs do not stay on the map. They settle into coffee cups, savings accounts, bedtime prayers, and the guarded silences between radio programs. But the evening refuses to become heavy for long. A band begins to play. Brass warms the room. A singer's voice flows through the static, smooth and intimate, as if standing just beyond the lampshade. The family relaxes again. The newspaper rises. The mending resumes. A child lies on the rug with chin in hands, eyelids lowering though they will deny being tired with the full legal force of childhood. You let the sound wash over you. Snow outside, music inside, static, wind, laughter, dishes, pipes, breath. The radio turns the living room into a small harbour for distant voices, and the storm makes those voices feel even farther travelled, as if they have crossed not merely miles but darkness, weather, memory, and the unsettled edge of a new age. The cabinet glows. The house listens. Beyond the walls, the street disappears under snow, but in here, the dial holds its amber circle, and the evening moves forward on a ribbon of sound. The radio continues to murmur behind you, but your attention lowers towards the rug, where the children have made a smaller world inside the larger one. Their corner of the living room is not marked by walls. It is made from scattered toys, bent knees, whispered negotiations, and the special concentration children bring to things adults barely notice. A toy car becomes a highway. A wooden block becomes a house, a folded blanket becomes a mountain range, a fort, a hospital, a train station, depending on who has the stronger argument. You sit nearby, warm now, and watch them arrange the evening around themselves. Their play is quiet because quiet is expected after supper, especially with weather closing in and adults drifting into radio, newspaper, and mending. No one has said bedtime yet, but the word is already in the room, moving closer with every tick of the clock. Children can sense it. They resist by becoming very busy. A child who was supposedly tired 5 minutes ago suddenly develops urgent architectural plans involving blocks and a shoebox. The toys are simple, sturdy, and a little worn. There may be metal cars with chipped paint, wooden soldiers, paper dolls, a small stuffed bear, checkers in a cardboard box, crayons rubbed blunt at the ends, and a colouring book with pages already pressed hard by determined hands. A girl might have a doll with a composition head, its painted eyes staring with calm, eerie patience. A boy might have a cap pistol put away for indoor peace, because the adults have survived enough loud noises for one generation. Thank you very much. The children's things show both new post-war buying and older habits of making do. A toy can be store-bought, homemade, handed down, repaired, or improvised from whatever was not nailed to the house. In the late 1940s, American childhood is beginning to change under the pressure of post-war prosperity, suburban growth, and a rising baby boom. More families are buying toys, books, and child-centered goods, and experts are speaking more confidently about children's development, routines, nutrition, and emotional needs. Yet older ideas remain strong. Children should obey. Children should help. Children should be grateful. Children should not interrupt adults unless bleeding, burning, or carrying a message from someone important. You see those expectations in the room. The children know not to run across the rug while someone holds coffee. They know not to shout during the news. They know that certain objects on the table are decorative and therefore not to be touched, which makes them far more interesting. They know that the radio dial is forbidden, especially after the earlier near tragedy of One Curious Finger. The rules are not always spoken. They hang in the air like the smell of floor wax. A child turns a page of a school book and smooths it with the palm of one hand. Homework may still be waiting, because peace does not exempt anyone from arithmetic. In many 1947 households, Schoolwork happens wherever light and space can be found at the kitchen table, a small desk, or the living room floor. A pencil scratches, numbers line up in uncertain columns. A spelling list waits to be copied. The paper smells faintly of dust and wood pulp. The eraser leaves pink crumbs. The child sighs as though long division has personally betrayed them, which, in fairness, it often has. The older child may be expected to help the younger one, or at least keep them from eating paste. School itself carries the values of the moment: punctuality, neatness, patriotism, hygiene, and the ability to sit still even when your entire body has other proposals. Teachers in the post-war years face crowded classrooms in many growing communities, with the baby boom just beginning to reshape the future. Tonight, though, that future is only a workbook under a lamp and a child's fingers smudged with graphite. A small period oddity appears in the world of play and school. Some children still use paste in jars with little brushes attached to the lid, a substance with a smell so distinctive that many adults remember it decades later. It was meant for paper, but children across time have treated paste, pencils, and erasers as if school supplies were part academic tool, part forbidden snack menu. Adults disapproved, naturally, while also creating paste that smelled oddly tempting. History contains many mixed messages. The younger child builds a line of blocks across the rug. The blocks click softly when they meet. A tower rises, wobbles, and falls with a muffled collapse. The child freezes, checking the adults. No one scolds. The storm covers many sounds tonight, and the radio covers the rest. The child begins again with solemn determination. You feel the tenderness of it. Childhood after the war is being asked to represent innocence, renewal, and the promise that the future can be better arranged than the past. That is a heavy job for someone currently losing an argument with gravity. Among social historians, the question remains unsettled whether the post-war home truly became more child-centered or whether children were still mostly fitted into adult routines, while magazines and advertisers simply made childhood look more tender and colourful. You can see why the issue is complicated. The children have toys, books, perhaps their own beds upstairs, and adults who care deeply about their future. They also have rules, chores, and little choice about the rhythms of the household. Love and discipline sit close together, sometimes in the same chair. A mother glances up from her mending and reminds someone to lower their voice. The reminder is gentle, but effective. A father behind the newspaper asks whether homework is finished, in a tone suggesting that unfinished homework is a moral weather event. The child says almost. Almost is doing tremendous labour in this room. It means not yet. Please stop asking. And I am hoping the snow will cancel responsibility. You look toward the window. Snow still falls thickly. The possibility of no school tomorrow has become the great unspoken drama. The children try to behave as if they are indifferent, but each new gust of wind brightens their eyes. A snow day in 1947 is not guaranteed fun without effort. There will be shoveling, there may be wet wool, there will be boots that never dry properly and mittens clipped, tied, or misplaced with great artistry. But still, no school is no school, some truths are eternal. Bedtime begins not with a command, but with signals. The radio program changes, the clock nears the hour. The kitchen grows quieter as dishes are finished. The adults' voices soften, then sharpen briefly around instructions. Put that away. Find your book bag. Bag. Stop poking your sister. No, the bear does not need to sleep downstairs. Yes, you have to wash. The child protests with the careful legal argument that they are not tired. This claim is undermined by the fact that they are lying face down on the rug. You feel the room shift from play toward order. Blocks go back into a box. Paper dolls are stacked. The toy car is parked beside the table leg as if it has reached a very important garage. The homework is gathered. Though one pencil has vanished into whatever dimension collects household pencils and single socks, child crawls under the coffee table to retrieve it and emerges dusty, victorious, and possibly more awake than before. The rules become softer as bedtime approaches, not because they disappear, but because the day is losing its edges. An adult smooths a child's hair, another ties a robe, someone checks the window and says the snow is still coming. That is enough to send a small thrill through the room. The children glance at one another. Tomorrow has become mysterious. You watch them stand, reluctant and drowsy, toys put away but imagination still active. The living room seems larger after their corner empties. The rug holds the faint marks of knees and blocks. The radio goes on speaking. The storm taps the glass. The children move toward the stairs, and the evening follows them, carrying with it homework, discipline, hope, and the small warm disorder of a family trying to teach peace to those who are born just in time to inherit it. The children's footsteps move toward the stairs, but the work of the evening does not climb with them all at once. It lingers below, in the kitchen, the hallway, the bathroom, the back entry, and every small place where comfort has left a trace. A house that feels restful at night has usually borrowed that rest from someone's hands. You begin to notice the hidden labour now, not loudly, not with a grand announcement, but in the quiet choreography after supper, when the radio still murmurs and the storm keeps worrying at the windows. Dishes are drying in the rack. A towel moves from plate to plate with a soft rasp. The sink water has gone cloudy, carrying grease, soap, and the last pale bits of potato from the meal. A cup is turned upside down, a fork is inspected, found guilty of holding gravy, and returned to the water. The kitchen light is bright, but the room feels lower than before, as if the energy of supper has drained into the basin. The air smells of soap flakes, wet cotton, cooled coffee, and the faint metallic scent of the sink. You stand near the doorway and watch a pair of hands work quickly. Scrub, rinse, dry, stack, nothing theatrical, nothing anyone will remember tomorrow unless it is not done. That is one of the quiet rules of domestic labour when it succeeds. It disappears. Plates return to shelves, crumbs vanish, wet counters become drier, the family drifts toward leisure and sleep, while the room resets itself like a stage between performances. In many American homes of 1947, washing machines were becoming more common, but automatic dryers were still far from universal, and much laundry remained heavy. Damp, seasonal work. Winter made everything harder. Wet wool did not politely dry on schedule. Sheets took time, mittens stiffened, socks hid in corners and reappeared only after someone had already blamed a sibling. Laundry was not merely a chore, it was a battle with water, weather, fabric, fuel and time. Near the back door, the storm has left its offerings. Damp mittens lie on a chair or are clipped to a line near the heat. Boots stand in a sad little row, their rubber or leather darkened with meltwater. A scarf has been flung over a hook and is dripping onto the floor with the confidence of an object that knows someone else will handle it. The smell here is sharper wet wool, cold leather, rubber, snowmelt, and the faint muddy scent of the outdoors trying to sneak in. You remember the front walk already disappearing beneath snow, and now you see how winter continues entering the house in pieces, on cuffs, hems, soles, and sleeves. Someone lays newspaper under the boots. The paper darkens as it drinks up water. This practical little habit appears in countless cold weather households, turning yesterday's headlines into tonight's boot mat. A grand fate for world events, perhaps, but useful. The front page may speak of diplomacy or strikes, and by bedtime it is absorbing slush from a child's galoshes. History is humble when it is wet. You move toward the laundry area, perhaps in the basement, perhaps near the kitchen, depending on the house. A basket waits with damp dish towels, socks, undershirts, and school clothes that must be ready again before anyone is emotionally prepared. The fabrics have different weights in the hand. Cotton is limp and cool, wool is springy, stubborn, and faintly animal. A flannel nightgown smells of soap and drawer wood. Linens are not decorative here. They're a rotating system that keeps bodies warm, tables decent, beds inviting, and family life from unravelling into a pile. One odd domestic practice worth noticing is the use of bluing in laundry. A blue-tinted liquid or powder added in tiny amounts to make white fabrics appear brighter. It sounds backward at first, adding blue to make white look white, which feels like advice from a mischievous aunt. But the faint blue countered yellowing, and generations of homemakers used it carefully, sometimes with near ritual seriousness. Used too much, and the family sheets might emerge with a ghostly tint, as if everyone had joined a very sleepy polar expedition. The linen closet, when opened, gives off a dry, clean smell. Folded sheets sit in stacks. Pillowcases are tucked together. Towels are arranged by size, or perhaps by wishful thinking, in a post-war home. Linens can represent pride as much as practicality. Good sheets matter. Guest towels matter. A tablecloth without stains feels like civilization itself during the Depression and wartime years. Many families stretched textiles carefully, mended them, turned worn areas inward, cut old sheets into cleaning cloths, and saved buttons as if buttons might one day negotiate peace. The debate among domestic historians is not whether this work mattered, but how to measure it. Did new appliances and modern household products truly reduce women's labour, or did they raise standards until the saved time vanished into cleaner floors, brighter whites, more elaborate meals, and better supervised children? The evidence folds over itself like laundry in a crowded basket. A washing machine may spare the back, but spotless shirts do not fold themselves. A cleaner kitchen may be easier to maintain, but everyone begins to expect it to stay that way. You watch a sheet being shaken out, its pale surface billowing in the warm air. For a moment it catches the lamplight and becomes almost cloud-like. Then it is folded, edge to edge, corner to corner, pressed flat by the practiced palms. There is comfort in the motion, even if there is fatigue beneath it. The hands know where to go. The fabric obeys. Outside, the storm is disordered, wild, uncreased. Inside, the sheet becomes square. Children call from upstairs or from the stair landing, asking where something is. A pyjama top, a book, a missing sock. The answer comes from below without hesitation. Second drawer under the chair, on the radiator. This is another hidden system of the home. Someone knows where everything lives, even when everything has wandered off. That knowledge is labour. 2. It does not appear on bills, in advertisements, or in the family photograph, but the household runs on it. A hot water bottle may be filled for a bed, especially if an upstairs room is chilly. The rubber gives off a warm, faintly medicinal smell. Its stopper is tightened carefully, because no one wants a midnight puddle masquerading as comfort. Some families warm sheets with bottles, bricks wrapped in cloth, or simply by placing them near the heat before bedtime. The idea is ancient in spirit, but in 1947 it still belongs to practical winter life. A cold bed is a persuasive enemy. Warm sheets are diplomacy. You carry folded linens toward the stairs or watch them being carried. The hallway light catches the pile's edges. The house seems calmer now, yet that calm is actively maintained. Damp mittens are turned. Boots are set right. Towels are hung where they might dry before becoming sour. The table is wiped. The dishcloth is rinsed and wrung tight. A crumb is swept from under a chair. A child is reminded again to wash properly, not merely wave at the sink and call it hygiene. The storm presses on. Its sounds have grown deeper, less like tapping and more like a steady enveloping hush. Snow absorbs the street. The house responds with folded cotton, dry socks, warm sheets, and all the quiet acts that make bedtime possible. You begin to understand that the cozy family evening is not a single mood. It is a construction made from food, furniture, sound, and labour so ordinary that it's easy to miss. The last dish is placed away. The last mitten is moved closer to warmth. A towel hangs from the oven handle, damp and tired. The lights in the kitchen remain on a moment longer, shining over the reset counters, while upstairs the bedrooms wait for linens, pyjamas, and the slow approach of sleep. You follow the evening's soft current toward the bathroom, where the air is warmer and damp around the edges, as if the room has been quietly holding its breath. The door opens with a small click, and the light snaps on, bright against white tile, porcelain, chrome, and the faint mirror haze left by someone who has already washed. After the living room's amber shadows and the kitchen's busy glow, the bathroom feels almost clinical, but in a gentle domestic way. It is a small room built around the promise that the day can be rinsed away. The floor is cool beneath your feet, even through socks. The tiles are square, practical, and a little slippery where steam has settled. The sink stands with rounded edges and separate taps, hot on one side, cold on the other, because apparently the past believed your hands should negotiate a treaty between scalding and freezing. A toothbrush glass rests nearby. A bar of soap sits in its dish, softened at the bottom, leaving a milky crescent where it has been turned too many times. The room smells of soap, tooth powder or paste, damp towels, shaving cream, and the faint mineral breath of hot water. Indoor plumbing is one of the great quiet luxuries of a home like this. By 1947, many urban and suburban American families expect a bathroom with running water, a flush toilet, and a tub, though access still varies sharply by region, race, income, and rural location. In some parts of the country, especially rural areas, indoor bathrooms are not yet guaranteed. Here, though, the presence of porcelain and pipes is treated almost as ordinary. That ordinariness is the miracle. The family does not need to carry water in from outside, heat every bucket on a stove, or step into a freezing yard at night. The bathroom is modern life made intimate. You hear water moving somewhere inside the wall. It rushes through pipes, then stops abruptly when a tap is turned off below or above. The house answers with a faint knock, a little shiver in the plumbing. Towels hang from a bar, thick but not luxurious, with darker damp patches where children have wiped faces without much concern for symmetry. A washcloth droops over the tub edge. The tub itself is deep and heavy, probably cast iron under its porcelain skin. It shines under the light in a way that makes it look cleaner than it may truly be, which is a talent many bathrooms cultivate. A child stands at the sink, sleeves pushed up, performing the nightly ceremony of becoming acceptable for bed. Water runs, soap slides. Hands are rubbed together with great visible effort after an adult has asked whether the backs of the hands were included. The child's face is washed in parts, forehead first, then cheeks, then chin, with a dramatic gasp as if soap and water are rare Arctic punishments. Teeth come next, the brush scrapes. Foam gathers at the lips. Someone spits with questionable aim. The sink receives this with long-suffering dignity. The modern bathroom of this period is not only about cleanliness, it is about moral confidence. Advertisements, schools, doctors, and home advice columns all speak the language of hygiene. Clean teeth, clean hair, clean skin, clean towels, clean children, clean homes. Germ theory has long since reshaped public health thinking, and commercial products now carry that thinking into everyday routines. Cleanliness is sold as health, attractiveness, discipline, and even citizenship. You're not merely washing, you're participating in civilization, one stubborn soap ring at a time. A small curious detail from mid-century bathroom life is the popularity of tooth powder alongside toothpaste. Many households use pastes from familiar tubes, but powders still linger, kept in little tins and shaken onto damp brushes. The texture can be chalky, the flavour bracing. and the mess impressive. A child with tooth powder can turn a sink into a winter landscape of its own, which may be thematically appropriate tonight, though not appreciated by whoever cleaned earlier. On the narrow shelf above the sink, you see a world in miniature: a safety razor, a shaving brush, a bottle of witch hazel or aftershave, hair tonic, cold cream, a comb with missing teeth, a tin of talcum powder, maybe a bottle of aspirin or a jar of petroleum jelly. These objects tell you who lives here and how the body is managed before sleep. Men shave or prepare to shave in the morning. Women remove makeup, set hair, rub cream into the hands roughened by water and soap. Children are scrubbed into a version of innocence that will last until breakfast, if everyone is lucky. The medicine cabinet mirror opens with a metallic click. Inside, the shelves are crowded but orderly enough. There are bandages, iodine, cough syrup, a thermometer, perhaps a little bottle of mercurochrome that stains skin a heroic red-orange. There may be a jar of Vicks smelling of menthol, eucalyptus, and parental certainty. Cold weather brings sniffles, and a winter storm gives every cough a little theatrical importance. The family may not call the doctor quickly unless truly necessary. Many small complaints are managed at home with remedies that are part medicine, part habit, part faith in whatever worked for Aunt Helen. The historical record leaves room for argument about whether the post-war obsession with domestic cleanliness genuinely improved health in the home, or whether it also helped create new pressures, especially on women, to maintain a spotless ideal that advertisements made look effortless. The bathroom is a perfect place to feel that tension. It is a room of comfort, health, and privacy. It is also a room where fingerprints show. Towels sour, tubs ring, mirrors spot, and someone is always asking who left the cap off the toothpaste. Progress arrives with chrome fixtures and immediately demands polishing. You touch the radiator or warm pipe if one runs near the wall. It is hot enough to make you pull your hand back. The towels closest to it are warmer, carrying the soft smell of damp cotton becoming dry. The window, if there is one, is fogged at the bottom and icy at the frame. A tiny draught slips through. Steam gathers on the mirror, turning your reflection into a soft blur for a moment. You are less a person than a shape in warm mist, listening to the storm scratch outside and the family settle within. A bath may have been taken earlier, especially for the children. Bath night is not necessarily every night in many households. Despite the clean sparkle promised by advertisements, heating water, scheduling turns, drying hair in winter, and keeping the room warm all matter. Tonight, with the storm deepening, a quick wash may be judged sufficient for some, others insist on proper scrubbing. Standards vary, and every family believes its own standard is the sensible one. The child at the sink finishes and looks up, face shining, hair damp at the temples. An adult inspects behind the ears. That famous frontier of parental suspicion. A towel wraps around small shoulders. The bathroom light makes everyone look a little paler, a little softer. The day's dirt has been sent down the drain. The drain gurgles once, taking with it soap, toothpaste, and the last resistance to bedtime. You step back into the hall, carrying the bathroom's warm dampness with you. Behind you, the mirror slowly clears. The soap rests in its dish. The towel hangs heavier than before. Pipes settle into silence inside the wall. The bathroom has performed its quiet promise, bodies made clean. Hands warmed, faces softened. The outside world washed to the edges for one more night. You move away from the bathroom's warm steam and back into the hallway, where the air is drier, cooler near the walls, and touched by the faint smells of wool, polish, and settled dust. The house is quieter now. Children are being guided towards bed. The kitchen has mostly surrendered its clatter, and the radio has softened into a background murmur. Yet the evening has not finished revealing itself. Some of the richest stories in this home are not displayed under lamplight. They wait behind doors. You stop at the coat closet near the entry, the one that greeted you with a dense breath of winter clothing when you first arrived. Now you open it more slowly. The door swings outward, and the darkness inside seems thick, as if the closet has been storing not only coats, but seasons. A row of hangers presses together. Wool overcoats hang heavy and dark, a woman's dress coat, perhaps with a fur collar or a careful imitation of one, brushes against a man's work coat. Scarves twist from hooks, hats rest on the shelf above, some in boxes, some simply set down with the optimism that no one will crush them. The smell is immediate: mothballs, wool, cold leather, old paper, and the faint dampness of snow brought indoors. It is not unpleasant. Exactly, it is the smell of preservation, the smell of a family trying to keep useful things useful. In 1947, clothing is still treated with a seriousness that can surprise modern eyes. Garments cost more as a share of many household budgets than fast fashion would later teach people to expect. And wartime rationing and shortages have reinforced habits of care. Clothes are brushed, aired, patched, turned, handed down, and stored with intention. A coat is not just a coat, it is an investment with sleeves. You reach toward a scarf and feel its rough weave between your fingers. It may have been knitted by someone in the family, perhaps years earlier. The mittens below it are stiffening as they dry. A pair of gloves lies folded with the fingers slightly curled, like tiny sleeping animals. On the floor, boots stand on newspaper, still wet along the soles. The closet is full of textures: slick raincoat fabric, scratchy wool, cracked leather, the soft nap of felt hats, and the dry cardboard of hat boxes. Every surface has had weather laid upon it and shaken off. Above the coat sits a shelf that functions as a small attic for the everyday. A hat box, a sewing basket, a flashlight, a folded umbrella. Though in this storm it would be more comic prop than tool. Perhaps there is a shoebox holding old letters, ration books saved out of habit, spare buttons, or photographs no one has sorted. Families often keep the recent past close, not always because they are sentimental, but because throwing things away feels unwise after years when supplies were uncertain. The Depression taught thrift, the war confirmed it, peace has arrived. But the hand still hesitates over the trash bin. One little oddity from the era sits comfortably in this closet world. Cedar chests and cedar blocks were prized not only for their scent, but for their supposed protection against moths. And some households treated cedar almost like a domestic guardian. The smell of cedar could make stored blankets and woolen seem cleaner, safer, almost ceremonially protected. Whether every moth was impressed is another matter. Moths have never been famous for respecting human confidence. You close the coat closet and move toward a larger storage space off the hall or upstairs. This closet is less public, less disciplined. Its door sticks slightly before opening. Inside, the house reveals its layers. Summer dresses hang at the back under garment bags, a suit kept for church, weddings, funerals, and other occasions requiring solemn buttons waits in careful stillness. Shoeboxes are stacked below, each labelled if someone is organised, unlabelled if the family has chosen mystery. There may be galoshes, an old handbag, a child's outgrown coat, a bundle of curtains, and a quilt wrapped against dust. The closet is a calendar made of fabric. Summer is folded high on a shelf, winter is hanging at shoulder height. Childhood sits in a box marked by sizes already too small. A baby blanket, kept though the baby has grown, carries the faint smell of soap and cedar and memory. Hand-me-downs matter in this household, not only because money matters, but because clothes carry family continuity. A younger child may inherit a coat with sleeves let down, a dress altered, a sweater reknitted or repaired at the elbow. Newness is desirable, certainly, but usefulness still has moral force. In post-war America, ready-to-wear clothing has become well established. and department stores, catalogues, and local shops offer families a growing range of affordable garments. Yet many households continue sewing, mending, and altering at home. A woman with a needle can extend the life of nearly everything in the closet. A hem can become longer, a collar can be turned, a button from the jar can save a shirt from exile. The home is not merely a place where clothes are worn, it is where they are maintained, judged, demoted, and occasionally resurrected. The question of what post-war clothing meant inside the home is not entirely settled among cultural historians. Some read these closets as evidence of expanding consumer choice and middle-class confidence. Others see them as proof that older economies of thrift remained deeply embedded beneath the bright advertisements. Standing here, you can feel both. There is aspiration in the Sunday coat. There is caution in the saved buttons. There is hope in a new dress pattern and realism in the patched lining of a winter coat. You open a drawer or a lower cabinet and find stored accessories. A pair of overshoes, shoe polish, a brush with blackened bristles, a tin of wax, maybe a handbag wrapped in tissue, a child's cap with ear flaps. These objects speak quietly of going out into the world. Church, school, work, shopping, visiting neighbours, waiting for buses, scraping windshields, walking through snow. The dream home may seem sealed tonight, but the closet knows better. It holds the equipment for leaving. The storm thumps softly against the side of the house, and the closet seems to answer with stillness. The coats do not move unless you disturb them. They hang like patient witnesses. Some may have known wartime train stations, factory shifts, church basements, ration lines, dances, hospital visits, and walks home in bad weather. A man's coat may have shoulders shaped by habit. A woman's hat may hold the faintest trace of hairspray or perfume. A child's scarf may be stretched where someone pulled it too hard in play. You think back to the supper table, where plates and chairs arrange the family into visible order. The closets arrange the family in another way, by season, age, gender, public role, and memory. What people wear outside begins here in the dark. Respectability begins with brushed wool and polished shoes. Warmth begins with mittens that someone remembered to dry. Social life begins with a coat that still fits well enough. You close one closet door, then another, and the latch catches with a soft click. The hidden spaces settle again. Behind the wood, wool keeps its shape, cedar releases its dry sweetness. Mothballs continue their stern little vigil. Outside, the storm erases footprints and rounds the edges of the yard. Inside, the family stores proof that winter has been survived before and will be survived again. The hallway seems calmer when you return to it. You carry with you the closeted smells of wool, leather, cedar, and old paper, the sense of years folded into shelves. The house is not only warming bodies tonight, it's keeping memory close, packed carefully between coats and stored seasons, waiting for morning, spring, or the next hand that opens the door. You leave the hallway and follow a deeper sound downward, the low, steady presence that has been under the evening all along. The basement waits below the main rooms, not exactly inviting, but necessary, like the practical underside of a dream. The stairs descend steeply, and the air changes with each step. Warmth thins, then gathers again in pockets near pipes and machinery. The smell becomes earthier, colder, and more mechanical concrete. Dust, coal memory, oil, stored apples, old wood, metal, and the faint mineral dampness that basements carry even when they are perfectly respectable. A bare bulb glows overhead, hanging from a cord or fixed to a joist, casting shadows between rafters. The ceiling is unfinished. Pipes run along it like a diagram no one bothered to label. The floor may be concrete, cool and slightly rough underfoot. It is not a room for display. There are no glossy magazine promises down here, unless some advertisement has become old newspaper lining a shelf. This is where the house shows its bones. The furnace sits at the centre of attention, broad, dark and warm, with ducts or pipes stretching from it like limbs. If it burns oil, there is a steady fuel smell not strong enough to alarm, just enough to remind you that comfort has a source. If it is an older coal furnace, the evidence may be even more physical: a coal bin, a shovel, black dust in corners, and the memory of daily tending. By the late 1940s, many American homes were moving toward oil or gas heating where service was available. But coal remained common in plenty of places, especially in colder regions and older houses. The warm living room above depends on this basement labour, whether the family thinks about it or not. The furnace makes a soft roar, then settles. Metal expands with little ticks. Air moves through ducts. A pipe knocks once in the wall, as if the house is clearing its throat. You stand near the machine and feel heat radiate against your legs. It is stronger here, less polite, upstairs. Heat was filtered through registers, radiators, rugs, and rooms. Down here it is more honest, fire or flame. Contained but powerful, is working through the night so that children can sleep under quilts and adults can forget the cold for a while. Nearby, shelves line the wall. They hold jars, boxes, tools, old paint cans, rags, and mysterious containers that no one wants to identify too confidently. Glass jars of preserves catch the bulb light. Tomatoes, peaches, beans, pickles, jam. Their colours are muted in the basement glow. Jewel-like but practical. Home canning remains an important household habit in the 1940s, especially for families shaped by gardens. Wartime victory planting, rural ties, or simple thrift. Even in a modernising home, stored food means security. A shelf of jars says, very quietly, "We planned ahead." You lift one jar and feel its cool glass. The lid is tight. Inside, summer waits in syrup or brine, while snow thickens above ground. The contrast is almost tender. Upstairs, canned peas from the store have already joined supper. But here are home-preserved goods, carrying the touch of a garden, a relative, or a summer afternoon spent boiling, peeling, sealing, and sweating in a kitchen much hotter than tonight's storm. The dream home looks forward, but its basement remembers older rhythms. One peculiar detail from home preserving deserves a sleepy pause. Pressure canners and water bath canning equipment were treated with both confidence and caution, and homemakers often relied on extension bulletins, newspaper columns, and family advice to avoid spoilage. The lids were watched with near sacred seriousness. A jar that failed to seal could inspire the same household disappointment as a child bringing home a bad report card, only with more botulism, anxiety, and less arithmetic. A workbench stands along another wall. Its surface is scarred with use. A hammer lies beside screwdrivers, pliers, nails sorted into jars, and bits of wire saved because they might be useful someday. A coffee can holds screws of uncertain origin. There is a paintbrush stiff from neglect, a roll of tape, a tin of washers, perhaps a broken toaster waiting for repair rather than replacement. In 1947, repair is still deeply embedded in domestic life. The economy is becoming more consumer-oriented. But many people do not yet assume that a faulty object should be discarded. You mend, patch, tighten, oil, reglue, and only then consider surrender. The basement is often a masculine zone in the imagination of the period, tied to tools, furnace tending, repairs, and household authority, but in practice, it belongs to everyone's labour. Laundry may happen down here, food storage happens here. Children are sent to fetch jars, mothers manage supplies, fathers fix things. Everyone fears the odd shadow in the corner and pretends they do not. The basement holds the family's practical anxieties in one place: heat, food, maintenance, storms, and what to do if something breaks at the worst possible time, because objects enjoy dramatic timing. Some researchers of domestic life read post-war basements as evidence of expanding privacy and leisure. especially when later families turn them into recreation rooms. Others emphasize their older function as service spaces, where the hidden infrastructure of comfort remained visible and sometimes dirty in this 1947 house. The argument is not abstract. You can see the transition waiting. There may be a cleared corner where a card table could someday stand, or boxes that hint at future hobbies. But tonight, the basement is still mostly work, storage, heat, and preparedness. Storm supplies sit near the stairs or on a shelf. A flashlight with heavy batteries, candles, matches in a tin or drawer, maybe a battery radio, maybe not. Extra blankets, a snow shovel leaning near the outside cellar door, if there is one. A sack of salt or sand. These things are ordinary until they're needed, and then they become heroic. The family above may be laughing over the radio, but someone has checked whether the flashlight works. Someone has made sure there is fuel. Someone has considered the roads, the power lines, the pipes, and the possibility that morning may bring more snow than the front steps can politely handle. You walk toward the laundry area, where the basin or tubs stand under a pipe, their surfaces dull and useful. The smell of soap lingers here, tying this basement to the folded linens above. A wringer washer may occupy a corner, heavy and serious, with rollers that demand respect. If you have ever wondered whether appliances can look judgmental, a wringer washer is prepared to answer yes. It saves labour compared with older hand washing, but it still requires attention, strength, and caution. Wet clothes are heavy. Water must be managed. Fingers must be kept away from rollers. Convenience has not yet become effortless. Above your head, footsteps cross the floor. Soft thuds. A child moving towards bed. A chair shifting in the living room. The basement hears the house differently. Every room becomes vibration. Every person becomes a sound travelling through boards. The home is layered family warmth above, machinery below, storm outside, earth beneath. You feel yourself held between them. The furnace breathes again, the bulb sways slightly, perhaps from a draught or from your own movement on the stairs. Shadows shift over the jars and tools in this underworld of the dream home. Nothing is decorated, but everything matters. The warm windows seen from the snowy street depend on this place. The glowing living room depends on this place. The clean sheets, the supper, the morning coffee, the dry mittens, all of it has roots below. You turn back towards the stairs. The air grows warmer as you climb, but also softer, less raw. Behind you, the furnace continues its patient work. The jars rest in rows. The tools wait. The storm presses above ground, but the basement keeps its steady vigil, low and practical, holding the household from underneath. You climb back from the basement and return to the main floor, where the house feels gentler again, but not completely secure. Once you have stood beside the furnace and listened to the storm from underneath, you begin to notice the edges more clearly. The dream home is warm. Yes, but winter is patient. It does not need to burst through the door like a villain in a radio drama. It only has to find a crack, a loose sash, a tired strip of weather stripping, a window that never quite sits square in its frame. Cold enters modestly, almost politely, and then makes itself comfortable. You pause near the front window. The curtains are drawn but not fully closed, and a narrow line of solite shows at the side. You draw the fabric back and look out. The street is nearly gone. The curb has vanished. The parked cars are soft white shapes with dark windows, each one wearing a rounded cap of snow. Porch lights glow across the way, fuzzy and golden. The wind pushes flakes sideways, then drops them, then lifts them again, as if the whole neighbourhood is inside a shaken snow globe operated by someone with too much enthusiasm. The glass is cold enough that you feel it before touching it. Your fingertips meet the pane, and the chill travels quickly into your hand. Moisture has gathered along the bottom rail, and in the corner a little frost has begun to feather outward. The pattern is delicate, almost beautiful, which is how winter gets away with being rude. A thin draft slip around the sash and brushes your wrist. Somewhere in the frame, the house has lost a tiny argument. Storm windows help, but they are not perfect. Many mid-century American homes rely on removable storm windows and screens, swapped seasonally or fastened in place before winter. In colder regions, they are part of household preparation. As necessary as checking coats and storing summer clothes, they create a pocket of air that slows heat loss, but the fit depends on care, age, and installation. A slightly warped frame, a loose latch, or one forgotten gap can turn a cozy room into a place where everyone mysteriously avoids the chair by the window. You can see the work behind the comfort. A strip of felt or rubber weather stripping may have been nailed around the door. A rolled towel may wait near the threshold to block a draft. Some families press newspapers, rags, or specially sewn draft stoppers against the base of doors in a house like this. Small repairs are not hobbies, they are winter tactics. Someone listens for rattles. Someone knows which window needs a folded bit of cardboard to stop it from knocking in the wind. Someone has promised to fix that properly when the weather clears, which is a phrase that can last several winters if treated gently. The storm rattles the side window, and you hear a faint buzz from loose glass. A hand reaches up and adjusts the latch. The sound stops, then begins again more softly. The house is not failing. It is simply in conversation with weather. Wood swells and shrinks, metal contracts, glass transmits cold. Plaster holds the day's warmth and releases it slowly. The home is solid, but alive in all the ways buildings are alive when the temperature falls. A small household curiosity belongs right here at the window. Some families used rope caulk, a soft putty-like material sold in coils, to press around drafty windows during winter. It could be peeled away later, at least in theory. In practice, bits of it sometimes clung stubbornly to painted trim, collecting dust and making the window look as if it had been sealed by a very cautious baker. Not elegant, perhaps, but when cold air is sneaking across your ankles, elegance becomes less persuasive. You step toward the front door. The metal knob is colder now than the room around it. Snow dusts the porch beyond the little glass pane. The door fits well enough, but there is still a dark line at the bottom where the outside wants in. You imagine the wind pushing powdery snow against the threshold, testing the seams. The family may have a storm door outside, adding another layer against cold and weather. It claps in rough wind if not latched firmly. It saves heat, protects the main door, and gives the house one more thing to complain about during a blizzard. In 1947, Americans do not yet talk about home energy efficiency with the later urgency of oil crises, insulation ratings, and utility audits. But they understand waste in a bodily way. Heat costs money. Fuel must be bought. Drafts are felt directly. A chilly room is not an abstract environmental issue. It is a child coughing in bed, a mother adding another blanket, a father checking the furnace twice before sleep, and everyone knowing that the chair by the window is for the bravest or least politically powerful member of the household. The memory of wartime conservation still lingers too. Only a few winters earlier, families were asked to save fuel, rubber, metal, and many other materials for the war effort. Blackout drills may have touched some communities more than others, especially on the coasts, where households practice covering windows so light would not show. By 1947, the blackout curtains are mostly memory, maybe stored somewhere, maybe cut up for other use. But the habit of thinking about windows as public surfaces has not entirely faded. A window is for looking out, letting light in, keeping weather away, and sometimes hiding the household from a troubled world. Specialists who study post-war housing often differ on how to interpret this mix of comfort and vulnerability. Was the single-family home a confident triumph of modern construction, or a fragile shell that required constant domestic attention to maintain the illusion of ease, standing beside the rattling pane? You do not need to choose. The house is both. It is modern enough to feel miraculous, yet drafty enough to remind you that miracles require caulk. You walk along the walls, noticing where furniture has been placed to avoid cold patches. The sofa is not directly under the worst window. A chair sits near a lamp and register. Curtains are thick enough to help hold heat, but not so heavy that they block all daylight. A rug covers the floor where bare boards would feel colder. The arrangement is aesthetic, yes, but also climatic. People decorate around weather more than they admit. The children have gone upstairs, and the adults' voices remain low. Someone asks whether the pipes will be all right if the temperature drops. Someone else says they should be, but may leave a cabinet door open under the sink or let a faucet drip if things get bitter. Pipes freezing is one of those winter fears that turns a peaceful house into a listening post. Every creak becomes suspicious. Every pause in the plumbing feels personal. Outside, the storm thickens again, pressing white against black glass. Inside, the house makes its small adjustments. Curtains are pulled closer. A door is checked. The thermostat, if there is one, is glanced at with both trust and doubt. The furnace below continues its work. You feel the warmth on your face and the draft at your wrist, the dream and its seam, the promise and the repair. At last, you let the curtain fall back into place. The window disappears behind fabric, and the room feels immediately softer, as if the storm has been tucked away. But you know it is still there, combing the siding, filling the walk, smoothing the street into silence. The house holds against it not by strength alone, but by dozens of small human decisions. Latch this, fold that, seal here, listen there. Winter presses closer, and the family answers with curtains, tools, fuel, habit, and the calm stubbornness of people who have done this before. You let the curtain fall, but curiosity pulls you back toward the world beyond it. The storm has made the street nearly private, almost secret, yet not empty. You step closer to the front window again, keeping yourself just behind the fabric, and look between the folds, across the white street. The neighbour's porch light glows through the snow. Another house shows a lamp in an upstairs room. Farther down the block, a dim yellow square floats where a kitchen window should be. The storm has softened every boundary, but the neighbourhood is still there, each home a little lantern in the same weather. You remember the front walk you crossed earlier? It is mostly gone now. Soon, someone will have to shovel it. And probably the sidewalk too. Because a respectable household does not simply let the public path vanish beneath nature's enthusiasm. In many American suburbs and small towns of the 1940s, neighbours relied on one another for everyday assistance, especially during storms, borrowing tools, sharing food staples, checking on older residents, pushing stuck cars, and clearing walks. The post-war dream home may be single-family and private, but winter reminds everyone that a neighbourhood is a practical arrangement, not just a view from the porch. A shape moves across the street. At first, you think it is a tree shadow. Then it becomes a person in a dark coat, shoulders hunched, hat pulled low, stepping carefully along the sidewalk. The figure carries a shovel. Snow gathers on the brim of the hat and on the tops of the shoulders. The porch light catches the shovel blade as it lifts and falls. Scrape, lift, toss, scrape, lift, toss. The rhythm is slow and stubborn, a little heroic in the most unglamorous way possible. No statue will be raised for clearing the front walk at 9 in the evening, although perhaps one should be, preferably near a warm bakery. Inside your house, someone notices too. A curtain shifts. An adult says, "Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so is out already." Another voice answers that they will be buried again by morning. There is no surprise in the tone. People shovel knowing the snow may undo the work. This is not optimism, it is maintenance. A porch door opens next door, and for a moment the storm enters that house in a bright gust. A woman appears, bundled in a cardigan or coat, holding something at her chest. Perhaps she calls to the person shoveling. Perhaps she brings gloves or a scarf or just advice, which is often the lightest thing to carry and the heaviest thing to receive. The words do not reach you clearly through the glass and wind. They are part of the storm's muffled theatre. The neighbours are not necessarily close friends, they may be friendly enough, which is a different and very useful category. They wave, they borrow, they notice lights, they know when a baby was born, or when someone's husband returned from service, when a family got a new car, when a roof leaked, when the washing machine broke, and when a child tracked mud across a newly cleaned porch. Suburban life in the 1940-7 can look private from the street, but it is threaded with observation. Curtains protect, but they also frame the watching. A small social habit of the period comes into view here, borrowing a cup of sugar. An egg, or a little coffee from a neighbour was not merely a charming phrase, but part of everyday household resilience, especially when weather, shortages, or missed shopping trips interfered with plans. It also created a gentle debt. The cup had to be returned, perhaps with something inside it, because even kindness keeps accounts. A borrowed cup can become a whole neighbourhood ledger, written in flower dust and politeness. You see the nearest porch light flicker slightly as the wind shakes its fixture. A wreath or winter decoration moves against a door. Not everyone decorates elaborately. This is January weather. Perhaps deep winter after holiday brightness has been packed away, or late December with decorations still clinging bravely to the rails. Either way, the houses share a look of endurance, low roofs, small lawns, young trees, snow on steps, curtains glowing from within. The neighbourhood is new or nearly new, but it already has patterns. The question remains open in the study of post-war communities: did suburbs create neighbourly closeness through shared life stages and similar houses? Or did they encourage a polite distance, a privacy fenced by lawns, mortgages, and social expectations? From this window, both answers seem to breathe against the glass. A neighbour may lend a shovel without ever discussing grief. A woman may bring sugar and still never be invited into the real worries at the kitchen table. The street is friendly, yes, but friendliness has rooms inside it, and not all doors are open. You watch another light come on across the road. Someone has heard the shovel and decided to join, or perhaps only to look. A man steps onto his porch in shirt sleeves, regrets that decision instantly, and retreats for a coat. A child presses a face to a window, just as you do, wide-eyed at the falling snow. For a moment, house mirrors house, each family watches the same storm, but from its own warm box of routines. The telephone may ring in one of these homes during a storm like this, a neighbour checking whether the power is still on, a sister calling from across town to say the roads are terrible, someone asking if the store closed early. Party lines still exist in some communities, especially rural ones, where multiple households share a telephone circuit and can overhear one another if manners fail. By 1947, private telephone service is common in many urban and suburban middle-class homes, but service varies, and the memory of shared lines lingers. Imagine trying to whisper family news while Mrs. Henderson down the road quietly lifts the receiver and becomes a one-woman intelligence agency. From the kitchen, you hear a cupboard open. Someone says they should check whether there is enough milk for morning. Milk delivery is still part of many households' routine, with glass bottles left on porches or in insulated boxes, but a storm can interrupt delivery. The milkman may arrive late, or not at all, depending on roads. The dream home is connected to a web of deliveries: milk, bread in some places, coal or oil, mail, newspapers. When snow closes the street, the web tightens, people begin taking inventory. Across the street, the shoveling stops. The neighbour leans on the handle, breathing visible clouds. The cleared strip is narrow and already dusted over again. A second person appears with another shovel. Now the rhythm doubles. Scrape, lift, toss, scrape, lift, toss. Snow mounds rise along the walk. The street between your houses remains unploughed. smooth except for faint tyre tracks filling in. The world has become slower. Inside, the adults speak quietly about whether to help. Maybe someone will go out in a few minutes. Maybe it's too late. Maybe the neighbour is only clearing enough for morning. These decisions carry social weight. Too much help can seem intrusive. Too little can seem cold. A neighbourhood runs on these delicate measurements, especially in a time when respectability and privacy matter so deeply. You do not simply burst into another family's storm unless the snow is high enough to justify it. The porch light across the street glows steadily now. The shovels move. The child's face vanishes from the window. Perhaps bedtime has caught them too. The houses settle back into themselves. You let the curtain fall again, but the image remains neighbours separated by snow, joined by it too, each household protecting its own warmth while watching the others do the same. You step back from the window. The room feels warmer after looking out. That is one of the winter's little tricks. Seeing another porch in the storm makes your own lamp seem kinder. The street beyond has not disappeared after all. It is hidden, softened, and quietly alive with shared weather, borrowed sugar, porch lights, shovels, and the careful friendliness of people who may not know one another fully, but know enough to look across the white dark and notice who's still awake. You leave the window and follow the softer sounds upstairs, where the house becomes more private with every step. The stairs creak under your weight, not loudly, but with the familiar small complaints of wood settling into winter. The banister is smooth beneath your palm, warmed by many hands. Below you, the living room glows in pieces through the stair rails. Above you, the hallway waits in dimmer light, carrying the smells of soap, cold cotton, furniture polish, and the faint dusty sweetness of wallpaper paste aging behind papered walls. At the landing, the air is cooler, heat rises. Yes, but old houses and modest new houses alike have their opinions. The upstairs does not receive warmth evenly, especially on a night when wind presses snow against the outer walls. A bedroom door stands partly open, releasing a wedge of lamplight across the hall. Inside, a child is being tucked into bed, though the process is not smooth. Bedtime rarely is. It is a negotiation disguised as routine. You step quietly to the doorway. The room is small, but it holds a whole universe. A bed with a wooden or metal frame stands against the wall, layered with sheets, blankets, and a quilt. The quilt may be store-bought, handmade, or pieced from older fabrics. It has weight. Not the modern kind of expensive weighted blanket with a brand name and a wellness promise, but the honest weight of cotton, wool, and necessity. The bedspread is turned down. A pillow lies slightly flattened in the centre, already shaped by the child's head from other nights. The wallpaper has a pattern, perhaps tiny flowers, sailboats, stripes, or pale shapes meant to be cheerful in many post-war homes. Wallpaper remained a popular way to give bedrooms personality, while paint colours and matching curtains helped create a sense of order and care. Manufacturers and magazines encouraged coordinated rooms, even for children, as if a proper pattern could gently guide a young soul toward tidiness. The evidence in this room suggests the wallpaper is trying very hard and the child is not fully cooperating. A small lamp glows on the bedside table. Its shade turns the room amber. A book rests nearby, perhaps a school reader, a fairy tale collection, a comic, or a library book that must not be lost under any circumstances. A glass of water stands beside it, requested at the last possible moment with the solemn urgency of a legal appeal. A toy sits under the edge of the blanket, smuggled in or officially permitted. His button eyes watch the room with loyal blankness. The child asks whether school will be closed. An adult answers with the ancient phrase we will see in the morning. You can almost hear hope thump against the mattress. The child is told to sleep. The child says they are not sleepy. This claim is weakened by a yawn so large it could shelter a small bird. The storm taps the window, and the child looks toward it, listening. Snow makes the night feel special, and special nights are difficult to surrender. You move to the window. Frost has gathered at the corners, and the glass is dark except where it reflects the lamp. The curtain is thinner than the living room curtains, perhaps cotton, perhaps patterned to match the bedspread if the household has achieved that level of coordination. A draught slips along the sill. Someone has tucked the curtain close, but cold still finds its way through. A bedroom in winter is a place of contrasts, warm breath under blankets, cold nose above them, hot water bottle near the feet if the room is especially stubborn, and one brave hand reaching out to turn off the lamp. A small period detail rests on the dresser, a child's alarm clock with luminous paint on its hands or numbers, glowing faintly in the dark after the lights go out. Earlier in the century, some luminous paints used radium, though by the late 1940s awareness of its dangers had grown after the tragic experiences of dial painters. Not every bedside clock is a hazard, and not every glowing dial belongs to that older story. But the little greenish shine reminds you how modern convenience often arrived before society fully understood its costs. A sleepy clock can carry a complicated history in its hands. In another bedroom, perhaps shared by siblings, twin beds stand on opposite walls or side by side with a nightstand between them. Sharing bedrooms is common, especially as the baby boom begins filling houses with more children than floor plans had politely anticipated. The beds are made differently, because children leave personality behind even when forced into identical furniture. One blanket is smooth, the other has already twisted itself into a fabric argument. Slippers wait beside one bed. A robe hangs from a hook, a school bag leans near the door like a tired animal. On the dresser, you see a hairbrush, a little dish for coins or marbles, a framed photograph, and perhaps a souvenir pennant from a vacation or a relative's school. The drawers stick slightly when opened. Inside are carefully folded clothes, or at least clothes that began the week with noble intentions. Undershirts, socks, pyjamas, sweaters. A cedar block might be tucked among woolens. The smell of soap lingers in the fabric, mixed with drawer wood and dust. The study of post-war family life leaves room for disagreement over how much privacy children actually gained in these new homes. Floor plans often promised bedrooms that separated parents and children, boys and girls, work and rest, yet in practice, rooms were shared, doors were opened, adults impecced, siblings intruded, and the walls were thin enough for every cough to become public information. Privacy existed, but it was partial, negotiated, and sometimes interrupted by someone asking where their sock had gone. You pass into the parents' room only briefly, not yet lingering on their late evening. That belongs to a later turn of the night. For now you notice its quiet difference: a larger bed, darker furniture, a chair draped with clothing, perhaps a vanity or dresser with a mirror, a jewellery box, a tie laid out for mourning, a newspaper folded on the bedspread. This room carries adult weight, bills, work, marriage, memory, and fatigue seem to sit invisibly on the furniture, but the lamplight softens it, and the storm makes even worries speak more quietly. Back in the hall, the children's rooms begin settling. One child asks for the door to stay open a little. Another wants it closed. One wants the hall light. Another complains that the hall light is too bright. A parent negotiates these demands with the weary diplomacy of someone who has already survived supper, dishes, homework, toothbrushing, and a search for missing pyjamas. The final arrangement satisfies no one completely, which is how you know it is fair. A bedtime prayer may be spoken in some households, soft and memorized. In others, there is only a kiss on the forehead, a reminder to keep covered, and a warning not to get out of bed again unless necessary. The definitions of necessary remain contested by children everywhere. A favourite book is placed within reach. A stuffed animal is tucked under an arm. The blanket is pulled to the chin. The lamp clicks off in one room. Darkness gathers, but not fully. Snowlight glows faintly through the curtains. The window becomes a pale rectangle. The house creaks, pipes murmur. Below, the radio's still playing. But from upstairs it sounds distant, almost underwater. The children listen to the muffled adult world beneath them, and to the storm beyond the glass. Their private dreams are beginning to form from the materials of the evening, the snow day hope, the radio voices, the neighbour with a shovel, the smell of supper, the warning not to touch the dial. You stand in the hall and let the bedrooms grow quiet one by one. The dream home's public rooms have shown warmth, order, labour, and neighbourhood light. Up here, the same dream becomes smaller and more fragile, a child's breath under a quilt. Wallpaper glowing faintly, an alarm clock ticking beside a bed, and snow pressing white silence against the window while sleep comes nearer. You linger at the upstairs hallway for a moment longer, listening until the children's shifting slows into the first uneven shapes of sleep. A mattress creaks once. A small cough sounds behind a door. Someone turns over, dragging the blanket with them. Then the house settles into that tender stage of night when childhood has been laid down, not quite silent, but no longer ruling the room. The adults remain awake below and above, carrying the last pieces of the evening in quieter hands. You return downstairs, and the living room looks different, without the children's scattered orbit. The rug is clearer. The toy car has been removed from its serious parking place beside the table leg. The radio plays lower now, its voices less important than the hush around them. A lamp still glows beside the sofa. The newspaper lies partly folded. Not finished, not abandoned, simply paused. The storm continues pressing at the windows, but inside, the family has entered the private hour after bedtime, when adults speak with the soft caution of people who do not wish to summon little feet back to the stairs. A father or husband sits near the lamp, perhaps in shirt sleeves now, collar loosened, tie removed and draped over a chair or carried upstairs earlier. His shoes remain on, because the day is not fully over until the last household decision has been made. He holds a newspaper and reads a few lines, then stops, eyes resting somewhere beyond the print. The paper carries a world larger than the room. National politics, prices, foreign aid, union disputes, housing shortages, baseball scores, department store advertisements, and movie listings. In 1947, the United States is adjusting to peace while stepping into new global responsibilities, with the Cold War taking shape through policies, speeches, budgets, and fears that ordinary families absorb through headlines and radio reports. The woman of the house may sit across from him, finally off her feet, though even rest has tasks folded into it. A basket of mending might be nearby. A bill may be held under the lamp. A list may be written on the back of an envelope. The pencil moves quietly: milk, bread, soap, starch, coffee, school pencils, perhaps coal oil or a note to call about a delivery. Domestic planning is a kind of night work. It does not clang like dishes or roar like the furnace, but it shapes tomorrow before tomorrow arrives. They speak in low voices, not secretive exactly, just adult. Their conversation moves around money first, because money has a way of sitting down uninvited after the children go to bed. The mortgage payment, the heating bill, groceries, new boots for the older child, a possible repair to the storm window, maybe the price of meat, maybe the question of whether to buy something on installment. Post-war prosperity is real for many families, but it often arrives with payments attached. A house can feel like success and still come with envelopes that make the room go quiet. One small habit from household finance in this period is the use of budget envelopes or labelled cash systems, where families set aside money for rent or mortgage, food, fuel, clothing, church, savings, and emergencies. It sounds quaint until you realise it makes spending visible in a way a modern card swipe politely hides. The envelopes might sit in a drawer, each one thin or thick with possibility. There is something almost dramatic about looking at the fuel envelope during a blizzard. It is not an envelope then, it is warmth with a flap. The man folds the paper, then opens it again to the classified ads or perhaps the sports page, seeking relief in smaller worries. A box score is mercifully precise. A headline about Europe is not. The woman glances toward the stairs when a floorboard creaks above. Both wait. No child appears. The conversation resumes. This late hour is where marriage in the dream home becomes visible without performance. At supper, everyone had roles. In the living room, they were parents, in the kitchen, workers. Now, beneath the storm's hush, they are two adults measuring the weight of their life together. There may be affection in the way one asks if the other wants more coffee. There may be fatigue in the way the answer comes a little late. There may be worry about work, a lingering wartime memory, a relative who needs help, a child's cough, a bill, a promotion that may not come, or the simple exhaustion of keeping hope polished. Researchers of the period do not fully agree on whether the post-war household restored older gender expectations or reshaped them under new conditions. The public message often urged men toward breadwinning and women toward homemaking. But real families were messier than the message. Some women continued paid work or returned to it when money demanded. Some men carried wartime habits of emotional silence into homes that wanted cheer. Some couples found new stability. Others found the script too narrow. In this room, the tension is not theoretical, it is in who holds the bill, who notices the child's cough, who worries about the furnace, and who is expected to say everything will be fine. The radio shifts to softer music. A crooner's voice slips through the cabinet, smooth and drowsy. The adults do not listen directly, but the song changes the room. It makes the unpaid bills seem less sharp at the edges. Smoke from the cigarette or pipe drifts upward if someone is still smoking, curling near the lampshade before thinning her into the ceiling shadow. An ashtray catches the grey remains. The smell is part of the wallpaper now, woven into curtains, chairs, and memory. Modern noses may protest, and fairly, but tonight, in 1947, it is simply part of the adult hour. The newspaper rustles. A cup is set down. The woman rubs her wrist, perhaps tired from dishes, laundry, and the 1,000 motions that made the house seem effortless. The man leans back and listens to the wind. For a moment neither speaks. Silence can be companionship when it is chosen, but burden when it is not. Tonight it is both, gently balanced. A clock ticks on the mantel or side table. Its sound grows clearer as the room quiets. 10 minutes pass this way, though they feel longer. The adults do the small tasks of closing a day. A door is checked, a light in the kitchen is turned off, leaving only the stove's pale surfaces and dark window. The thermostat or furnace control is considered. The front door is tested again, because a winter storm encourages mild suspicion of every latch. The curtains are drawn tighter. A newspaper is folded for morning reading or for boots, depending on whether world affairs need to be absorbed by slush. Upstairs, another creak this time. A child's sleepy voice calls faintly. Water, perhaps, or a blanket has slipped. One adult rises before the other can fully move, because habit is faster than intention. The footsteps go up, pause, return. The child is settled again. No drama, only the quiet repair of sleep. When the adult comes back, the room feels even later. The radio's turned down further or switched off, if switched off. The cabinet fades from voice into a final warm hum. Then silence. Without it, the storm seems larger. Snow rubs against the glass. The furnace breathes below. The house, so full all evening, now reveals its inner sounds. The couple gathers the last items: newspaper, sewing, list, cup, pencil. A lamp is left on for the final climb upstairs. The adult worries do not vanish as they stand, or they are simply carried more softly. Wrapped in routine, bills will wait until morning. The storm will decide what it wants to do. The children are asleep, or close enough the house is warm, if a little draughty. The dream holds for another night. You follow. As the living room is dimmed behind them, the lamplight narrows, then disappears. The stairs rise again into cooler air, toward the bedrooms and the final rituals of sleep, while below, the quiet furniture keeps the shape of the evening like a memory pressed into cushions. You climb with the adults toward the sleeping rooms, but the house does not feel smaller now. It feels wider in a different way, as if the quiet has opened invisible doors. Below the floorboards, the furnace keeps breathing. Beyond the window, the snow keeps falling. Inside the walls, pipes settle, wood contracts, and the whole structure makes soft winter sounds that seem almost thoughtful. You are moving toward the bed, yet the larger country presses gently around the edges of the night. The parents' bedroom waits in low lamplight. A quilt or chenille spread has been folded down. The pillows are dented from earlier use, perhaps from someone sitting there to read the paper or sort a child's clothes. A chair holds tomorrow's shirt. A pair of shoes sits near the closet, polished enough for work but not shining with unnecessary vanity. On the dresser rests a hairbrush, a dish for cufflinks or coins, a bottle of hand lotion, perhaps a framed photograph from years before, when faces looked younger and the future less furnished. The room is private, but not sealed away from history. No room is. Outside this house, America is changing with the restless energy of a nation that has won a war, expanded its industry, and now cannot quite decide whether it wants to rest or build everything at once. Highways are being imagined and improved. Veterans are buying houses with help from the GI Bill, although those benefits have not been equally available in practice. Mortgage systems, developers, employers, and local customs shape who can enter neighborhoods like this one. From inside the bedroom, all that policy becomes something very simple: a monthly payment, a key, a bed, a roof in a storm. The adults move quietly, a drawer opens, a watch is wound or placed on the dresser, a billfold is emptied of receipts, a hairpin drops into a dish with a tiny metallic sound. The day's public selves are being set aside. Shoes come off, stockings or socks are folded. A robe is pulled closer against the cool air. The lamp makes an amber circle on the bedspread, and outside the window, the storm is a pale blur behind the curtains. You notice a magazine near the bed. Its cover may promise a new home plan, a better cake, advice for raising confident children, or a feature on modern decorating. Magazines of this era often sell a future that feels only one purchase away. New drapes, new appliances, new floor plans, new cars, new plastics, new hope. The tone is cheerful enough to be suspicious, but also understandable. After years of scarcity and mobilization, people want things that shine. The telephone downstairs, heavy and black on its table, belongs to this changing world too. The radio cabinet below still dominates the living room, but television is waiting just beyond tonight. In 1947, commercial television is still limited, with relatively few American households owning sets, yet its growth is beginning. Within a handful of years, living rooms will start rearranging around screens. Family evenings will tilt toward pictures. Children will learn jingles with faces attached. Adults will complain about programs and then watch them anyway, because humanity is consistent. For now, the radio remains the voice of the night. Its silence downstairs leaves a memory in the air. The world has spoken through it weather reports, music, comedy, sponsors, news from Washington, and faraway tensions. The people in this house may not describe themselves as living through the start of the Cold War. They are more likely to think about breakfast, roads, bills, and whether the children's boots will dry. But history rarely asks permission before entering ordinary life. It comes in through headlines, taxes, prices, factory shifts, school lessons, and the quiet fear that the peace might not stay peaceful. One little object on the dresser hints at the future in a more domestic way. a savings bond certificate tucked inside an envelope, or a bank book showing slow deposits. Wartime bond drives had made saving feel patriotic, and many families carried that habit into peacetime goals: a refrigerator, a car, college for a child, a better washing machine, maybe someday a television. The bank book is not dramatic, it is paper, numbers, patience. But in a 1947 bedroom, it can hold more longing than a love letter and cause nearly as much anxiety. The meaning of this post-war change remains open to interpretation. Some historians describe the period as a broad expansion of middle-class security, built through wages, federal policy, mass production, and consumer optimism. Others point to the exclusions, pressures, racial barriers, gender constraints, and debts hidden inside that same glow tonight, standing beside the bed. You feel the truth refusing to become one thing. The dream is real for this family. It is also partial. It comforts. It asks for payment. It opens doors. It keeps other doors closed. The adults turn down the bed. The sheets are cool at first, despite the house's warmth. One person slides a hand across the fabric, testing the chill. A hot water bottle may already be tucked near the foot, its rubbery warmth waiting like a secret. The blanket's a layered sheet, wool blanket, quilt, perhaps another cover pulled from the closet because the storm has ambition. There is a practical art to winterbesting, a geometry of warmth. Too little and you wake cold, too much and you wake trapped under a textile landslide, wondering whether the family has mistaken you for stored furniture. Across the hall, a child mutters in sleep. The adults pause. No one moves for a moment. Then the child settles, and the room relaxes. The house is full of these small checks, small listens, small adjustments. Parenting in the night is not always rising in crisis. Sometimes it is simply hearing the difference between a dream sound and a real call. You turn toward the window. Snowlight seeps through the curtain, faint and blue. The storm has blurred the neighborhood into silence. Somewhere beyond the white street are highways that will widen, shopping centers that will rise, subdivisions that will spread over fields, schools that will swell with children, and office parks that do not yet know they are coming. The land around homes like this will change quickly in the coming decades. Commuting patterns, car ownership, household consumption, television habits, and expectations of privacy will reshape American life. But none of that arrives all at once. Tonight, it is only possibility sleeping under snow. A clock ticks on the bedside table. Its face glows faintly, and time seems slower in the storm. The adults settle into bed or prepare to. A lamp remains on for one last minute. Maybe one reads a paragraph and forgets it immediately. Maybe one says something about the snow. Maybe there is a soft laugh, tired and private. The room holds the day's final warmth. You sense the house becoming a vessel for dreams. Not only the dreams of people asleep, but the larger American dreams built into its walls. A yard for children, a car in the drive, a kitchen bright with appliances, a safe street, a job that lasts, a future better than the past. Yet beyond those promises are other futures, more complicated and less visible from this bed: protests, migrations, new laws, changing families, different voices asking who gets to belong inside the dream. For now, the blankets rise and fall with breathing. The storm presses its white palm against the windows. The furnace below answers with another steady breath. America changes beyond the walls, but the family sleeps inside the change, not knowing its full shape, only feeling tonight's simple version of it: warmth, roof, snow, debt, hope, and the quiet tick of morning coming closer. The lamp finally goes out, and the house becomes a world of softened edges. Darkness does not fall all at once. It gathers slowly, first in the corners of the bedroom, then along the furniture legs, then across the ceiling where winter shadows rest like folded cloth. The curtains hold back the worst of the storm's brightness, yet snowlight still enters, pale and blue, enough to trace the window frame and the quiet rise of blankets on the bed. You're lying still now, or nearly still, wrapped in layers that smell faintly of soap, cedar, cotton, and the dry warmth of the linen closet. The sheets were cool at first, but your body has begun to claim them. The blanket presses gently over your shoulders, near your feet. If the household has been especially kind to winter, the hot water bottle sends up a small rubbery warmth, steady and old-fashioned, not glamorous, no, but deeply persuasive. Modern luxury may have apps and settings, but a warm bottle at the foot of the bed understands the assignment. Outside, the storm continues without needing an audience. Snow strikes the window in soft bursts, then quiets, then rises again under the wind. The sound is not sharp anymore. From the bed, it is almost feathery, a brushing, a hush, a long breath moving around the house. The street beyond is hidden. The neighbours' porch lights, the shovel marks, the cars, the young shrubs, all have been gathered into whiteness. Morning is somewhere inside that whiteness, but it has not opened yet. The family is asleep or approaching sleep by separate paths, in one child's room. Dreams begin around the hope of school cancellation. In another, a blanket has slipped and been kicked into a strange diagonal shape. The parents breathe more heavily now, their late evening worries set down beside the bed. Not solved, only quieted. Downstairs, the living room holds the memory of lamplight. The sofa is empty. The newspaper waits folded. The radio cabinet is silent. It's amber dial dark after a night of voices. The kitchen rests with clean plates and cupboards and a towel drying slowly from the oven handle. Below all of it, the furnace keeps watch. It starts with a low rumble, then a warmer current moves through ducts or pipes, travelling room to room like a message from the basement. The house answers with little sounds, a tick in the wall, a creak in the stair, a faint settling in the roof. These noises are not alarming now, they are the speech of shelter. Every house in winter has its own vocabulary, and by midnight the family knows which sounds mean comfort and which require getting out of bed. Tonight, the sounds are ordinary, blessedly ordinary. In the year 1947, many American families are still adjusting to peace, to returned soldiers, to new babies, to shortages ending unevenly, to homes bought with hope and monthly payments. That larger life is sleeping here too, under plaster and shingles. The post-war house is often described as a symbol of stability, but stability is never as still as it looks in advertisements. It must be heated, cleaned, paid for, repaired, stocked, defended against drafts, and filled with routines that make tomorrow feel possible. There is a small curiosity hidden even in sleeping arrangements. Electric blankets are beginning to appear in American homes around this era, though they are not yet universal, and many families still rely on heavier blankets, quilts, hot water bottles, and common sense, which is cheaper and less likely to require reading instruction. The promise is always the same warmth without fuss. But in this house tonight, warmth still has weight. It presses down softly, layer by layer, making the body feel anchored against the storm. Those who study post-war domestic life still weigh two truths against each other, whether homes like this mainly offered genuine refuge after upheaval, or whether they taught families to hide unease behind orderly rooms, proper meals, and polished furniture, lying here in the dark. The question feels less like an argument and more like breathing in two directions. The house does protect. It also asks much. It shelters people from snow, and it shelters dreams that may not fit everyone equally. It is tender and imperfect, warm and drafty, private and connected to every pressure beyond the door. The storm deepens toward the small hours. Snow piles higher along the porch steps. It settles on the roof in thick, quiet layers. It covers the newspaper under the boots by the door. It rounds the neighbour's cleared walk until the shovel's labour is nearly invisible. It softens fences, mailboxes, curb lines, and tire tracks. The whole street becomes less a street than a memory of where a street has been. Inside, the rooms hold their places. The closets keep their coats. The basement keeps its jars. The bathroom mirror, clear now, reflects darkness and a faint bar of hall light if someone has left one glowing for the children. The kitchen clock ticks. The pipes pause, then mutter. The stairs are still. A child turns over and sighs. No one wakes fully. You feel how the house gathers the day into itself. The first cold step on the porch. The entryway smell of wool. The furnace breath in the hall. The kitchen steam. Supper against rattling windows. The radio voices crossing snow. Children resisting bedtime with the full dignity of the overtired. Linens folded. Mittens drying, closets holding seasons, neighbours shuffling under porch lights, adults speaking softly over the bills. All of it has led to this quiet bed in the storm. Morning waits, hidden but certain. It will come with grey light, stiff shoes, a kitchen floor cold enough to make everyone walk faster, and someone peering through the curtains to judge the snow. Perhaps school will close, perhaps work will be delayed. Perhaps the milk bottles will arrive late with little frozen caps lifting under their paper tops. Someone will shovel. Someone will relight the kitchen. Someone will complain cheerfully that the storm was something, wasn't it? But not yet. For now. The night has the house in its hand, the family is warm, the storm is outside, the dream home, with all its hope and labour, creaks softly and holds. You lie under the blankets and let the sounds become slower. Furnace, wind, window, breath, each one moves away a little, then returns, then moves away again. The snow keeps falling, but it falls as if it has all the time in the world. You do not need to watch it. You do not need to measure it. You only need to rest inside the small, stubborn miracle of a roof, a bed, and a winter night that has been made gentle enough for sleep. The storm begins to soften now. Not because it has ended, but because you no longer need to follow every sound it makes. The wind passes along the roof and keeps going. The snow settles on the sill and asks nothing from you. The house has taken the evening into its walls, and all the rooms you walked through have grown quiet behind you. The kitchen is dark, clean enough for morning. The living room holds the faint shape of chairs, lamps, magazines, and the silent radio. The hallway keeps the smell of wool and polished wood. Upstairs, blankets rise and fall with easy breathing. Down below, the furnace continues its patient work, not hurried, not proud, simply faithful. Let the old house keep watch now. Let the porch light glow under its little cap of snow. Let the neighbours' walk disappear for a few more hours. Let the milkman, the school bell, the unpaid bills, the damp mittens, and tomorrow's cold shoes wait where tomorrow keeps its things. You are not needed anywhere else tonight. The year can keep its questions, the world beyond the windows can keep changing, roads can widen later, televisions can arrive later, new worries, new hopes, new mornings, all of them can wait beyond the drifted street. Here, for this final moment. There is only warmth under layered blankets, the pale blue of snow behind curtains, and the deep quiet of a home holding itself against winter. Your hands grow heavier. Your thoughts loosen. The storm becomes a lullaby without words, soft at the glass, softer in the mind, until even the ticking clock seems to drift farther away. Rest now in the hush of 1947, in the little dream home under snow, where the night is kind, the rooms are still, and sleep comes down as gently as the falling flakes, sweet dreams.